into week 4 of the NFL season. Thanks everybody for joining in. My name or Twitter handle, not really my name, at least not legally, is NFLosophy. Appreciate everybody coming in, tuning in, getting here at the beginning of the show. Crossover, appreciate you, man. I wonder if other streamers do this. I wonder if they end up with like a hectic start to the show and they're either trying to finish breakfast or lunch or whatever it may be, because sometimes it's just do whatever you can do to try to make it on time. There was actually one of the streams, you can check the VOD, I think it was this weekend, that I accidentally started the stream before I actually had the starting screen up. Like, it's fun. It's fun trying to stream and trying to figure this stuff out as you go, and I am not an AV wizard by any means. So, Crossover, I appreciate that. I am very much human and not the brightest crayon in the box. So, appreciate the leniency there. But it is week 4. It is Thursday night. Week 4 does start tonight. We have a thriller of a ball game between Jacksonville and Cincinnati, and we'll talk a little bit about that game. Actually, we'll probably talk a lot about it just based on my notes. I have way more notes for that game than I anticipated, but we can definitely talk a little bit about it, especially since it's the game tonight. We won't really be able to get into the matchups of everything else. We'll talk about some of the matchups that we see tonight. I'll tell you now, hey, the one lock, and I'm going to feel bad if this goes wrong, but the one lock I see tonight is if you do prop bets, is the Trevor Lawrence over 16 and a half rushing yards tonight. If you do prop bets, I feel like that is probably the lock of the weekend. The reason for that is it's always good to play the running for a QB, especially whenever they are facing especially whenever they're facing a man team. Whenever a team plays man, it ends up being a whole lot of cornerbacks turning their backs. And Trevor Lawrence isn't a slow guy. Like, it's not like he's, Tom Brady back there. He's got some wheels on him, and they're probably going to run a good amount of zone read with him tonight. And the link to your YouTube doesn't work. Oh, yeah. I figured that out today. So I actually just got that set up last night, the YouTube. So it really hasn't even existed until just now. So, but I appreciate the heads up, Crossover. Crossover, we may have to start handing out some swords sometime. So may have to keep you in mind for that. So Trevor Lawrence, I think he's gonna get a few zone reads tonight. He's gonna break out of the pocket, easily covers that 16 and a half rushing yards, I think. And he may even do it on just one run. So we'll see. But as Crossover mentioned, there is now a YouTube page. The only 2 videos that I've put up so far, I've never put videos on YouTube before. So this is the first time I've ever done it. So if you want to check out some past streams, I am going to load them up there. I also need to get some timestamps in there so you can fast forward. Nobody wants to listen to a 3-hour stream on YouTube. So I'll make sure to get some timestamps in there for you guys as well as we go forward. So appreciate all of you guys hanging in there tonight, coming out and hanging out with me. So we'll start now, and we will get to. Well, don't want to hear myself. We'll get to all of the games for this week. We'll stick around until then. I know the game starts at 8:20 tonight, so in about an hour and 5 minutes, we will, as we're going through the games, we'll flip that on, do a little bit of a sidecast while we finish out whatever games we haven't gotten to. And we can continue to talk about that game, maybe some of the players specifically in that game, some things to look forward to in the future, because neither one of those teams really interest me as far as what I think they're going to be able to do this year. It's possible the Bengals potentially look at a playoff spot, but I still don't think they're that good. I think when they play good teams, they're going to get hosed. So with that being said, let me do a couple of things here. So you guys have the odds in the chat if you want to take a look at them. It is Cincinnati tonight. So we're starting to get into that point of the year where, depending on where you're playing, it might start getting a little bit chilly, could potentially get a little bit windy. You can always use the weather command as well, and then exclamation point commands will tell you everything that's out there if you want to test anything out. We haven't really used a lot except for the odds, so feel free to use them, and feel free to drop any questions that you have, fantasy, in real life football, whatever it might be. Everything is open right now, so let's get started. So for tonight, actually, let's go through the odds real quick, and then once we go through the odds, just for every game, I'll call out a couple of things that stuck out to me whenever whenever I was going through and making my notes for tonight. A couple of them really kind of stuck out to me, and then we'll get into Jacksonville, Cincinnati tonight. So overall, the odds. So Cincinnati favored by 7.5. This is as of noon today, so noon Eastern. So these may have changed just a little bit since then, but probably not. I mean, the only game probably that would have changed since then is tonight's game. But Cincinnati by 7.5. 46 is the total. Nothing really kind of out of line there. Cincinnati is a decent team. Jacksonville, not good. And even when they do seem like they're playing well, which was last week, they implode. And we'll talk about why that is. Washington, Atlanta. Atlanta is +1 in that game. 47.5 is the total. That's a weird game. That's two not very good teams playing against each other. And it was kind of hard for me to pick there for a second. And then I thought about it, and it just totally makes sense as to who's probably going to win that game. Houston, Buffalo, -16. This is one that stuck out to me. That -16 is a huge number, especially for this early in the season. And we know that Houston's not as bad as what we thought. But if you look at Buffalo's last two games, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Detroit, Chicago -3. Interested to see how that one plays out. There's a lot going on there. Carolina, Dallas -4. That is probably more hype on the Cowboys than anything, rather than thinking that Carolina is not real, I would say, because 4 points is a pretty good spread. Wouldn't surprise me. You know, it could move either way, honestly. I don't know what the general sentiment is about Carolina and if people think that they're actually for real, but I'm pretty sure everybody knows that Dallas is for real by now. Indy, Miami -2, 42.5. Nothing really interesting there. Cleveland, Minnesota +2. That one seems to suggest that Vegas thinks that Minnesota is actually a good team, or that they might actually be a good team. And we'll talk through that a little bit, because that one was a line that I felt like the general public would probably lean pretty heavy on Cleveland, but with it just being a +2, and it is in Minnesota, so on a neutral field, it's 5 points, right? So, or theoretically, we still don't know if Vegas is actually accounting for the -3 that they usually do for home teams, but it certainly seems like it. New York Giants, New Orleans -7.5, 42 total. That game goes as Jameis goes, probably. Tennessee, New York Jets +7, 44 total. The Jets are bad. KC, Philly, Philly's +7, 54 is the total there. That may feel like a lot, right? Because it's a full touchdown and an extra point, which is really kind of that breaking point of whether it's that Vegas odd makers feel like it's going to be a blowout. But to me, that one seems really low, actually, just based on what I've seen of both of those teams. And it may be an overreaction to Kansas City losing last week. So, but Philly lost even worse. So I'm still surprised that's +7. That one really seems kind of off from what I think it should be. We'll see how that one goes. Arizona, Rams, Rams -4 in LA, which suggests that these are two very, very even teams. If they were playing on neutral field, it would only be the Rams by a point. So that's kind of a fascinating line as well. Clearly, the odds makers think that Arizona can play with the Rams, and it may just be kind of that intra-division thing where they pull those spreads a little bit closer whenever it's in the division. That may or may not necessarily be the smartest of moves. So 55 is the total there. Seattle, San Francisco -3, 51.5. San Francisco is 2-1, but they haven't exactly played like a really good team. And we'll get into that a little bit, but Neither is Seattle. So that one's that one will be a fascinating game. 51.5. I mean, I feel like the over is pretty much guaranteed there. Neither one of these teams has really played terrific defense so far. San Francisco probably better than Seattle on that side of the ball, but I don't think Seattle should have any problems with San Francisco. Baltimore Denver, really interesting game because Denver hasn't really played anybody. Baltimore, we there's a lot of people saying that still want to think that Baltimore is a really good team, and they haven't exactly played that way. Um, they've been very inconsistent. They didn't really do a whole lot against the Lions last week, and you can look at that game and say Marquise Brown dropped a couple of passes that would have really put them far, far ahead, and that game shouldn't have been nearly that close. But you can't continue to let things like that happen. Denver not played a strong schedule so far, still -1 at home. So odds makers tend to think that Denver is a decent team, and we'll see. We'll see about that game. That was one of the games that fascinates me this weekend because I don't know if Denver's for real or not, but I'm really interested to find out. 45.5. So Pittsburgh, Green Bay. Green Bay's defense showed up last week. Pittsburgh, has fallen off a cliff. -6.5 to Green Bay. 45.5 for total. Tampa Bay, New England. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Brady's going back to Boston this weekend. I know that's probably news to a lot of you guys. You haven't heard of any of the actual, the news around that or any commentary around that. So honestly, I don't really care. It's not that big of a storyline for me. I get it. Like, it's hard for people to come up with content every single week and things to talk about whenever you're following the same team over and over and over for 16, 17, 18 weeks. So when there is a story like that, you've got to take advantage and beat it like a dead horse. And then finally, we actually get a really good Monday Night Football game this week. So Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Chargers. And I'm proud that I got both of those cities right. Chargers -3, total 52. That is going to be a terrific game, I think. Those are two very good teams right now, and I'm super excited to watch that game. Should be very, very interesting. And those are going to be all the totals. So from there, we'll jump into some of the games this week. Like I said, some really good games. First of all, Omasari, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Hope you stick around. Some really interesting games. There's some bad games on that. There's some really bad games. Either because it's two bad teams or like a really good team and a really bad team playing against each other. But there are a couple games sprinkled in there that are going to be really, really good games, I think, this week. And a couple of games where we're going to learn a lot about a couple of teams. So let's jump into it. Jacksonville, Cincinnati. So Thursday night football. Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence. And this isn't LSU versus Clemson anymore. This is big boy football. I will say Burrow has certainly adjusted better to the NFL, though he has another year than Lawrence does. But Burrow was also much farther along, I felt like, last year, even 3 or 4 games in, than Trevor Lawrence was. So Burrow was much more successful last week when he wasn't under constant duress. Jamar Chase, he's coming to be known as a vertical wide receiver, but he is so much more than that. I'm completely fascinated by the kid. He's turned out to be phenomenal. Don't let anyone tell you that he's just a 9 route and that's it. Like, he's not just running go routes. Well, he's running a lot of go routes, but that's not the only route that he can run. He's a fully complete wide receiver, incredibly dynamic. These two are going to be fun to watch for a very long time. I will say the same thing can be said about Burrow. The same thing about Burrow can be said about Trevor Lawrence. If you can keep him protected, he's not a terrible QB, and he's still definitely a rookie QB, but he's pretty much late on everything that he throws. Omasari, Chase can really end up being one of the next elite wide receivers. He certainly looks like it. Yeah. Grizz route running is solid nonetheless. Yeah, he had a nice little 9-yard touchdown last week that kind of showcased that as well. Not just the 34-yard bomb. Can you really call it 34? I guess it's over 20 yards. It's over 30 yards. We'll call it a bomb. Not just a 34-yard bomb that Burrow hit to him, but he had that little 9-yard TD that was pretty solid as well. but so the thing is if you can keep Trevor Lawrence upright, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a really good quarterback and he can deliver the ball. The problem is that it seems like everything he's doing right now is just a beat too late. And we've talked about this a lot, and it just continues to be the issue. Um, the biggest problem with that is that he's pushing the ball down the field instead of like those shorter throws that are kind of gimme throws. And it's fine on those shorter throws if you're late, right? Like if you're late on a shorter throw, I mean, you can potentially miss a receiver. It ends up falling to the ground. You know, maybe you throw it a little bit behind him and he doesn't get as many yards after the catch. Like it's not as bad when you're throwing it short and you're late. But when you're late on throws down the field, you're inviting disaster, especially against decent teams, because it ends up being a turnover more often than not. And therein lies the problem with the way that the Jags are handling Trevor Lawrence right now. Because it's just not it's not cohesive. Anything that they do doesn't make sense with everything else that they're doing. And again, it's a constant theme that we've talked about. Grizz, Urban Meyer, Coach of the Year. He's changing the culture. Take that how you will. I mean, changing the culture to what? It's not winning. Gabe, Clemson offense was very basic, so getting more complex makes it harder. I wouldn't say that this is more complex. I mean, he's not really running a full-on NFL offense at this point. It doesn't seem like. Grizz, he's the anti-Mac Jones. Yeah. I mean, like it's and the other thing that I saw this week was a report from like I heard that the Jags aren't worried about Trevor Lawrence taking too many bullets back there because he's a resilient kid and he's a strong player, and they think that he can get beat up and he'll be just fine. And they don't feel like they have to worry about it having much impact on his long-term progression. And maybe that's right, maybe it's wrong. I don't know, but surely they know Trevor better than I do, right? We always say like, hey, at some point we have to trust the coaches because they get to see these guys every day. So maybe they're right. Maybe that is something that they know, that they're like, hey, we know that Trevor Lawrence is going to be fine, even if we just keep throwing him out there in front of traffic and letting him get run over. And if they're right, it still feels negligent. Like to me, that's kind of like getting a new car and not caring if it gets a few scratches and dents on it because you're driving recklessly and you're like, it's fine. We can just buff out the scratch and pop out the dent and no big deal. You can fix those. But driving like that also means that you're putting yourself much more at risk of a bad accident where you end up like breaking an axle and the wheel falls off the car. And it's funny because as I say that, I feel like I'm actually drawing another parallel between Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, because it's basically what the Bengals did last year, and Burrow went down with a leg, like his wheel literally fell off. And he went down with a leg injury. And so yeah, like that's what you can get. Like that's the risk that you run, and even if you're right, it still doesn't feel appropriate to handle somebody like that. And like I said, they may be right, they may be fine, but I'm just not sure that that's the best process to manage Trevor. And what I would say is that I would like to see the offense be built more to help Trevor out. Like his strength isn't necessarily dinking and dunking passes. Like he was good in college at pushing the ball down the field, but they need to build a few more of those quick and easy throws into the game plan and at least give Trevor a little bit of a breather. So like he's not as, don't put so much on his shoulders. The Jags actually have a solid run game. They're rushing for 5-1 a carry. And it's not like it's because Lawrence is padding those stats, because James Robinson by himself is rushing for 5-2 a carry. And Robinson isn't a bad receiving back either. So let him take a few rips at it and take some pressure off of Lawrence. And that'll also take some pressure off the defense too, because we've talked about it. Like you've got to marry what your offense and your defense is doing. And if you start to run the ball, it takes some pressure off of your defense. And I'll say this, one of the stats that I saw today, I only reference time of possession in certain instances because time of possession is a stat that is an indication of other things happening. It's not like an indication of like it's not a winning stat. Like it's not like a stat that like, hey, if you have a lot of time of possession, it means like you shouldn't target having a lot of time of possession. Like it shouldn't be the main focus of your game plan, but it can be an indication of other things that are going on. And it's not a stat to be used in a silo. But the Jags are the second worst team in time of possession. That means that defense is on the field a lot. And we've talked about how they need to get a more cohesive game plan between the offense and defense. And I think they can at least start that journey by running the ball a little bit more. Omisari, let's see. Well, let's back up. Gabe, have the Jags developed a QB yet? No. I can't think of one. Leftwich was the last good one that they had. Blake Bortles didn't turn out so great. Blaine Gabbert didn't turn out so great. Although he's probably much better now than he was back then in Jacksonville. Like he could win a game or two and with the team that he has around him in Tampa Bay if he were to need to get in case, God forbid, Brady goes down. But yeah, I haven't seen a good QB develop there yet. Almost a risky way to play with such a heavy investment. And that's been my point. Like the payoff isn't really there. Like you're 100% correct. Like for me, it just doesn't make sense to draft these rookie quarterbacks. It doesn't make sense to draft these rookie quarterbacks so early and then just run them out there and not protect your investment. It's very rare that unless you're the Jags, it's very rare that you get a number 1 overall pick. Jags are probably used to it at this point, but that's kind of besides the point. It should be rare that you get the first overall pick. If you draft a quarterback at number 1, which is pretty much what happens every single year, why wouldn't you just be like, you know what, maybe we should chill. Maybe we should just like make sure, like we don't have to be 100%, but let's be like 70, 80% that this guy's ready for this. And then let's kind of like walk him into it. Let's, we'll let him crawl a little bit. Then we'll give him a walker, and then we'll take the walker away. We'll give him training wheels, and then we'll let him fly from there. Like just let him get there. And we're seeing that now where the teams this year are like, oh, let's throw Zach Wilson in. Let's throw, Justin Fields in. Let's throw Trevor Lawrence in. And they're not really succeeding. And it looked like Mac Jones was going to be okay for a minute. Problem is all of a sudden he doesn't have an offensive line because they're starting to try to push the ball down the field a little bit more, and he's not throwing after half a second. So now all of a sudden he doesn't look like he's that fantastic of a quarterback. So I actually think on that, it brings up a point actually that I forgot to mention when we talked about rookie quarterbacks. I'll get to that in a second. Grizz, everyone is in Deshaun Watson though. Yeah, it's just, and even Deshaun, it took him his first year, like he was dynamic, but that first year it's not like he was throwing the ball all over the yard and being super efficient with it. He made plays, don't get me wrong, but that's not necessarily how you want an NFL to play, or a quarterback to play in the NFL either. David Garrard, ECU's finest. Did he really develop time? I mean, I guess he made it. He probably made it the longest, but I don't know that you could call that development, right? So on the rookie quarterback thing, and this is something I forgot. We talked about this on Tuesday night. I forgot to mention there are a lot of teams and a lot of people that talk about running the ball on first down to help a rookie quarterback, like take some of the pressure off him. Just run the ball on first down and then you're going to take some of the pressure off. And like, if you're not running the ball well, if that's not an effective play call, you're not helping your quarterback. You're hurting him. Because all you're doing is putting him behind the sticks on second down. Like if you can't get good yards on first down, then it actually hurts your QB instead of helping him, because now he's in an obvious passing situation. And it's something that I get frustrated with on the Bucks, because they're like, hey, let's just run Rojo or Lenny, ram it into the back of Ali Marpet for a yard. And well, now we've got 2nd and 10 or 2nd and 9 at best. And Brady has to overcome that on nearly every drive. Like let's say overcome that. And he's the greatest to ever do it. And if Brady has to overcome that when we're trying to run on first down, maybe we should rethink that strategy for rookie QBs. Like scheme up an easy completion on first down that gains 4, 5, 6 yards and then run the ball. And if even if it's third and short, call up a smart run play and try to get it on the ground. Try to get the first down on the ground. Like, give your option. Like, and here's the thing: you can call a couple of plays and give your QB an option to check out of it at the line. So hey, you're third and short all of a sudden, and call a run play. And if it looks like a good run, go for it. If not, let him check out of it and then throw for it if that's what you need to do. Call two plays in the huddle. So and then let him alert just based on the matchup. Trevor can definitely do that. Trevor's smart. He can absolutely do that. And then also give him some motion and help define the picture pre-snap. But stop running the ball on first down just to run it, because it's not helping. It's not helping rookie QBs. It's hurting them. Like, a smart play caller is what helps a QB, not just running the ball just to run the ball. So, sorry, I'll jump down off my soapbox because that was just something I thought about. I wanted to point out the other day that I'm seeing a lot with these rookie QBs. Oh, let's just run it. That'll help them. No, it won't. It hurts them because now all of a sudden they're trying to throw in 3rd and 12. And, like, that doesn't help anybody. Gabe, Herbert had the best rookie QB season in a long time. He's not the norm. Herbert, and don't forget, Herbert wasn't going to get any clock until a doctor put a needle in Tyrod's lung. And then Herbert all of a sudden comes in and is like, hey, I can do this. But you're also not going to see a cannon like that. And a guy that, and like I talked about this on Tuesday, he is so unaffected. Like, he gets a little rowdy and gets a little excited on the sidelines and after plays and stuff like that. But in the game, Justin Herbert is so unaffected. And I'm just fascinated by that. Like, we talked about, like, he's not fearless because you actually, you have to know that fear exists. I don't think he knows that fear exists. It's just, he's just like, okay, it's 4th and 9 late in the game against the Chiefs. Here you go. Laser to Guyton right in the chest, and let's get a first down. Like, he's completely unaffected by the craziness of the game, and it's so much fun to watch. Omasari, sounds like the Giants' philosophy the past 5 years, except Daniel Jones has no shot of overcoming that. Yeah, yeah. And Saquon Barkley is supposed to be the savior of their organization, not Daniel Jones, right? Like, that's honestly how they thought of that. They were like, hey, we're going to get Saquon Barkley, and then we're going to be able to run the ball, and then we don't necessarily need a quarterback. And we talked about this, and sorry, it probably feels like I'm repeating myself a lot, but that's what the Giants want to do. They feel like they can win doing that. So they're going to have to change something way high up for the Giants to make a turnaround, but we'll see. Gabe Barkley is a super ineffective runner. Man, I would love to see Barkley in a different situation. They're running that man into the ground. He has been nice, and he hasn't been nice since college. Yeah, like, I feel for Saquon. I just want to see him on a different team. I don't know if it's him, if it's injuries, if it's the play calling. Like, there's a lot going on in New York right now, and I don't know if that's definitely not the right place for him. So, they definitely rushed him back from injury, and that was what I was pissed off about in week one. Yeah, week one, and then he had to play on short yardage or short rest for that Thursday night game, and he still didn't look fully healed last week, but looked a little bit better. Cleveland handled Beckham. Yeah, like, here's the thing. Like, I continue to watch people just being, and I've said this before, being available, like, being able to play and being effective are two different things. If a guy's not going to be effective, maybe it's not the best thing. And look, I've seen it done. The Bucs have run Mike Evans out there as like as a decoy every once in a while. And because they know that if he's out there, somebody's going to move their best cornerback on him, which is going to allow everybody else. But that's not the best way to do it. Like, you got to be smart about the way that you do that. And there are a lot of coaches that just aren't smart about things like that. And I just definitely don't agree with the way the Giants have handled Saquon so far this year. Grizz, everybody's not AP. Yeah, Peterson he's a freak, man. He shouldn't have been running for as long as he was, and he shouldn't have been as effective as he was, as old as he was. But hey, that dude was in his prime. He was one of the funnest guys to watch because he was so powerful, and he was not afraid to not just take a hit, but give a hit to anybody. All right. So let's see. Cincinnati likes to play a good amount of man. So like we said, Trevor's going to get a few first downs by running the ball. I think tonight also helps if the Jags can block it up front. So that should be there. Should also be some opportunities for James Robinson. Like this Bengals defense isn't bad, but they're also not like a dominant defense. So if they can get James Robinson going, the Jags have a shot to keep this close tonight. The Jags do have a new receiving tight end in Dan Arnold that they just got from Carolina, but they are one less cornerback in AJ Henderson. Like, I don't hate that move in the sense that a receiving tight end is a nice addition, and especially for a rookie QB. But good cornerbacks are hard to come by these days. And I know Henderson he hasn't been playing particularly well in Jacksonville, but like, it's if you have a shot at a good cornerback, I think you got to ride that horse until you know it's not the horse that you need. And so I think it was a good trade for Carolina. They did give up a good amount in terms of having to get rid of Dan Arnold, and they swapped a 3 for a 5, I think. So kind of expensive, but not too bad. So we'll take it. Was Henderson the right scheme fit for Jacksonville? Um, yeah, I mean, Jacksonville likes to play like they like to mix it up up front. The problem is we're 3 games into the season with a new coaching staff, and I'm not sure that this staff even has any idea of what they really wanted to do on defense. Like I here's the thing. I don't think Urban Meyer is going to last longer than a year because it's just looked terrible unless something crazy happens between now and then. But Joe Cullen, I don't think Joe Cullen has an idea of what he wants to be. Grizz, that team has no identity. I think you're right. I think they don't have an identity. I don't think they have an idea of what they're doing. And Cullen's over here coaching, and Bevel and Urban are over here coaching, and they're not talking to each other. And Nick Sorensen's probably somewhere in the back with his kick with Josh Lambo going, bro, I got nothing to do with this. We're doing okay, right? There's no communication amongst those coaches about how they want to play the game together. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, it's a continuing theme of teams not playing together, and we'll hit a couple of those tonight. But like the Jacks, they're not there yet. Like since he should have a good chance to move the ball tonight. I would say Josh Allen is probably the only concern up front for the Bengals. I would keep an eye on Malcolm Brown over the right guard. That could potentially be a mismatch in favor of Jacksonville tonight. So I'm interested to see if Malcolm Brown can get something done because the right guard of the Bengals has not been good. Um, I mean, as long as Burrow stays upright, the wide receivers are gonna get open. Jacksonville can't cover. Since the offense should be able to move the ball. I can't possibly pick the Jags until I see some sign of them pulling their offense and defensive game plans together. And so far, there's no sign. Like you could potentially see it tonight, maybe, where they finally go, you know what, short week, let's just try to fucking run the ball. Like maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we just let James Rob. The weird thing is it's like they don't care that James Robinson is actually a good player, or they don't believe James Robinson is actually a good player, but the kid's averaging 5.2 a carry whenever they give him the ball, and he's catching the ball out of the backfield. So, like, what more do you need to see to be able to ride that horse? Like, let's go. Let's give Trevor a little bit of a break every now and then. Don't ask him to force the ball down the field. Gabe, you taking Cincy covering -7.5, right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, until I see because Cincy's showed that they can score, especially on bad defenses, and I just don't think that Cincy. I would imagine that the Jags are going to try to double cover Jamar Chase tonight. So I outside of that, I mean, you've still got Taj Boyd. I don't know. I doubt T Higgins is playing tonight. I haven't seen the inactives. Probably should have looked at that before we jumped on stream. Let's check real quick. But T Higgins didn't play last week. Bengals inactives. Bengals inactives. No, it looks like he is. So Bengals inactives, Awuzie, Bates, Shelvin, Higgins, Suafilo, and Fred Johnson. Okay. Um, Starting secondary should be Trey Waynes, Mike Hilton, Eli Apple, Brandon Wilson, Von Bell. Like I just don't see those aren't terrible players. They're not playing great. Um, they're not good players. They're not great players, but I the Jags are gonna have a problem moving the ball tonight because the Bengals defense isn't bad. What are they? I think they're middle of the pack, maybe just above middle of the pack in DVOA, if I remember correctly. Um, oh wow, they're fourth in DVOA on defense right now. So interesting. They won good 40 times. Production be damned. Inactives were mainly DBs. Yeah, yeah, Grizz. Yeah, like I just I don't understand what's going on in Jacksonville, and I don't understand how they're supposed to be very analytically driven, but it, whatever numbers they're using, it must not be right because if you've done any data analysis ever, you always hear the term garbage in, garbage out. Well, they're getting a lot of garbage in because we see what the result of that is on the field. I couldn't believe Houston Buffalo line. I really think Buffalo can cover it, but man, that's a lot of points. That's exactly my thought, Gabe. Minus 16 was massive. We'll talk about it a little bit here in a second. But yeah, Chase gonna sauce up anybody they put on him. Yeah, I don't know anybody from Jacksonville that can cover at this point. So we'll see. They use Con Company numbers. I think that's the same thing at Fulham. Yeah, so I know that Tony Khan is, and Tony Khan, I think he scolded me on Twitter one time because I asked him a question. He was like, "Well, duh, doesn't every team?" And my thought was, "Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean you guys do." It was something about his numbers, and he hasn't spoken to me since. So even though we talked a little bit before that, so we'll see. I don't even think he follows me anymore. Griffin can run with him. He'll get exposed on the routes. So yeah, Griffin's not going to be able to cover Jamar Chase. I like Griffin, solid player, but he ain't that type of player. Crossover. I don't understand why the Bengals are last in the league in passing rate over expectation. Last in the league in passing rate over expectation. On offense, because passing rate over expectation is just here's when you should run the ball and you're throwing. So they may be, and the thing is they may be in like 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3 because Burrow's really good at getting there, and they allow him to throw on first down a decent amount. Yeah. So I'm gonna take Bengals 7 to cover 7.5. I looking through this, man, I hate this, but I feel like I'm gonna be taking a lot of favorites this week. And I don't know if that's just because I'm either in line with the odds makers or the odds makers are just playing me for a fool. All right, Washington, Atlanta. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time. Really tough game to pick. I could convince myself either way. Neither team has played well thus far. Both teams. So this is funny. Both teams' single win has come at the expense of the Giants. And they actually both could have been beaten in that game against the Giants. So I'll call out one stat for each team that I found, and then we'll kind of move on. So Washington, for as bad as we've talked about their defense, the front four are actually still getting a pretty healthy pressure rate of 30%, which is fifth in the league. So it's not their pass rush that's been terrible. It's the coverage on the back end has been atrocious, like terrible. It's Oh, I need to add that in exclamation point odds. Let's do. There you go. I got you, game. So the back end of Washington has been bad. Like they got to figure out a better way to scheme that back end to help out those guys a little bit because they've not played well. I just remember all of the Washington people telling me, "Oh, you're underestimating our cornerbacks. Like I can't believe that you don't think these guys are good." And I'm going, "Are they though? Like are they?" Like I mean, I know everybody wants to love Kendall Fuller. Not a bad player. William Jackson, not as good as Kendall Fuller, in my opinion. Like, it's not like these guys. And then behind that, there's not a whole lot going on. And everybody loves Landon Collins. Love Landon Collins. Problem is your linebackers can't cover. Landon Collins is effectively he's a tweener between a strong safety and a will linebacker, and they haven't done a great job in putting him in a position to be successful so far. So that comes down to coaching and scheme, and they got to be able to figure that. William Jackson's been getting exposed this year. He just hasn't been good. None of those guys have been good. Not a single one of them, and it shows up every time you watch. And I was actually surprised at the looking at the numbers of Washington's pressure rate, because I didn't feel like they were doing that well. Chase Young still doesn't have a sack. Did he get one last week? I don't think he got one last week. But Chase Young still doesn't have a sack. It's not. They're still just not a good team so far. And so for Atlanta's actually only getting 5.2 net yards a pass. That is tied for fifth worst in the league. That's amongst like the Bears, Dolphins, Jags, and Jets. And the Saints, oddly enough. But if you watch the Saints you play, you understand why. Jameis is dinking and dunking all over the place until like one shot per game. The Falcons are the only team in the NFL that hasn't attempted a pass over 20 yards in the air so far. I find that fascinating. You have Calvin Ridley, who isn't necessarily a deep type of receiver, but you have Calvin Ridley and you have Kyle Pitts, and you still haven't attempted a pass over 20 yards. Like, I get it. They can't block anyone, so it makes it hard to do that. But you can still scheme up ways to be able to do that. Rollouts, like they haven't even attempted a Hail Mary. So like that's hard. Like figure out a way to scheme one in there. Like do a flea flicker, roll Matt Ryan out. I know he's pretty much a statue, especially at this point in his career. But also, please get Kyle Pitts more involved in the offense. Like, give him some targets. Like, scheme some stuff specifically for him. I will say, I saw that 538 had the Falcons forecasted to win by 4, which I thought was interesting because it just feels completely wrong. I don't think Washington is very good because that defense isn't very good. Here's the thing. I think we all know that their defense isn't very good. Their defense should be better than what they are. Their offense is probably actually better than what most people think they are, because if they give Antonio Gibson the rock, like they can move the ball. As long as Heineke doesn't turn the ball over and they get Gibson going in this game, Washington should be fine. Like the Washington should really kind of take this. Let's see. Chase Young needs more moves, it seems. It's also kind of a product of who he's faced. Now against the Giants, he had a pretty solid game, though he still didn't have a sack. Who else did the Giants play? I was surprised that he didn't end up with. Let me see. Giants got Washington. Washington should have Samuel back too. The thing is I don't know that it changes that offense very much. So, I was looking at Washington, not that. All right, so Washington's played Los Angeles. Chase doesn't typically line up on the right side, on the defensive left side, offensive right side. So he didn't really face Storm Norton for the Chargers. Had a decent game against New York, and then Buffalo's not bad, especially at left tackle. So he kind of had a little bit of competition. So we'll see what he can get going against Atlanta. But I would expect him to have a really solid game against Atlanta. Matt Ryan's probably not going to have a terrific game. They do a good job of scheming in a quick passing game, which is why they throw for 5 yards per attempt. But like they've got to be better. They've just got to be better all around. I definitely think Washington's going to be there. Montez better than Chase. Crucify me. I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. I think they win in different ways. I think Montez Sweat is a really good player, and really strong as a defensive end. I think Chase is a freak at the position. He's not the most polished, but if he continues to grow, he's going to be hard to stop. Again, want to see more out of him this year, but I think he'll get there. Jameis looking like Breeze, huh? Yeah, like Breeze with who's been neutered basically at this point. which I can understand. They don't want him making any important decisions. So, Houston, Buffalo. Buffalo minus 16 in this one. Huge line. But we also have to remember Buffalo's gone 35-0 and 43-21. 43-21 in the last two games. So dropped 35 against Miami, who couldn't score on them, and then they dropped 43 on who did they play last week? Washington. 43-21. Dropped 20 like 43 on Washington. Did give up 21. It's hard for me to argue that with Davis Mills still in as the QB that Buffalo won't cover this. I've always looked at these with a little bit of skepticism because it's really hard to cover 16 points. But it's a lot of points, but I'm still taking Buffalo. Buffalo just seems to choke the life out of teams. Like again, it's not like they're just overly dominant. And 35-0 is a bit misleading about that Miami game because Miami did have some opportunities, and that was the game Tua got hurt and Brissett came in cold and had to figure it out. So I got to take Buffalo there. All right, Detroit, Chicago. Justin Fields rebound game potentially, maybe not. Outside of this isn't a game I'm all that interested in. Bears are bad on offense. The defense actually isn't that bad for the Bears. We'll see if they're good enough to keep the Lions at bay. I said today on Twitter, like Fields needs to come in and dominate for the Bears to want to continue to start him. Like if he comes in and has a bad game or even a mediocre game against a bad Lions defense, like I think the Bears should pull the hey, Fields was only starting while Dalton was out. That was the plan all along. Like Dalton's back, Dalton's ready. We're gonna put Dalton back in. And they just need to let that play out, and that way you don't have to make anybody look bad. Like the coaches don't have to look bad. Ryan Pace doesn't have to look bad for them having to go back to sitting Justin Fields after trying to let him start. Like that's probably the best way for them to play it if Justin Fields doesn't just absolutely dominate. Like again, even if he has a mediocre game, if he comes out and goes 15 for 25 for 150 yards and a touchdown and a rushing touchdown against the Lions team, that's what he should do. So, I feel like for me, that's kind of where I would be as a team for Chicago. I know you're an NFL guy, but college, it's easier to cover those. But Vegas has UGA minus 18.5 against number 8 Arkansas. Seems super high. Yeah, college is definitely different. And I was also super surprised to see Arkansas. So I don't follow college football enough, but I was super surprised to see Arkansas at number 8. That does the fact that Arkansas is number 8 makes me wonder, should they be number 8? Like what about them is so good? So and Georgia apparently has a front 7 that is just ridiculous right now, and all of them are going to end up playing well in the NFL, it seems like. So Grizz Nagy's been getting crushed. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have a team and watch what he's calling on the field and be confident in what Nagy's doing. Like how do you? He looks at his play sheet. He doesn't seem to pay attention to the game. Like every time I see him, he's looking at his play sheet. And by the way, dear God, keep that guy away from the microphone. Like he came out on Tuesday and started talking, and I was like, what the hell are you like? There's nothing that he said that one made sense or two inspired confidence and my confidence in him as a head coach or as a play caller or in the way that he's handling Justin Fields. So this guy was coach of the year in 2018, which thoroughly surprises me. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the Bears just still aren't good. That defense isn't bad. I think it's good enough to stop the Lions. Dude, I love DeAndre Swift. I hope we see a ton of him because he is an absolute playmaker. A lot of fun to watch. Would love to see him eat. And then Jamal Williams isn't a bad backup to him either. But let DeAndre Swift eat. And honestly, I think that's the best way for the Lions to have a shot at winning this weekend. Chicago's -3, so we'll see. I'll make all my picks on the Sunday show. Gabe, Arkansas beat Texas at home and Texas A&M on neutral site, and coaching staff is good. UGA defense is insanely talented. Offense versus Clemson defense scored 3 points, then blow out other teams. I get they have more talent, but it's weird. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not like it's a what do they call it? Linear whatever. It's kind of like it is in the NFL. Just because like Dallas beats Carolina, Carolina beats Tampa Bay means that Dallas should also beat Tampa Bay. That's not how it works, right? So, and in college, it tends to go that way because the talent disparity between teams is much larger than it is in the NFL, and that's why you see more innovation in college too, right? Like we could talk about that for a second, but that's why you see more innovation in college is because the talent disparity between teams means you have to figure out a way to beat a team that's much better than you. And that's why you always see the bad teams trying some weird shit on the field, right? Like that's how the spread offense comes about. That's how the read option comes about. That's how zone read comes about. They take old ideas, they make them new again. They put a little bit of a twist on them, and then all of a sudden there are teams that are beating much more talented teams because they're not ready for those little things that they do. And that's one of the biggest reasons for innovations. They just kind of figure out a way to make it work. In the NFL, that doesn't happen as much because you get crucified if you're wrong. If you go outside of the norm in the NFL, you get crucified if you're wrong, right? Uh, Belichick, 4th and 2 against Indy, goes for it, wrong. Still to this day, people remember that play and him going for it in that particular situation. Now we know that was mathematically that was the right call. He absolutely should have. Now you can question the play call and all of that stuff, but he made the right choice in terms of going for it. But the NFL stifles innovation, and that talent disparity between teams in college absolutely creates innovation. And that's why you see things from college trickle up into the NFL because NFL teams go, "Hey, if that worked for them, maybe I could use that here." So we'll see. Nagy's coach of the year was a result of Vangio Staley being the best assistants in the league. You know what? Crossover, um, that's a really good observation. It probably 100% was because to me, head coach, coordinator, they are all the same in terms of how important they are. Like to me, being able to keep really good coordinators is super important. And I would consider paying coordinators like head coaches just to keep them around. Though your head coach isn't going to like that because he's going to go, "Oh, you're going to pay him 3 million and you're paying me 4 million. I'm going to need 6." Right? Like you're going to get into that conversation. But we're going to be like, "No, we're paying him 3 million to keep you earning your 4 million that we're paying you." So yeah, we'll see. Carroll throwing on the goal line was the right call also. So, yes and no. I would say that no matter what, you give Marshawn Lynch the ball and let him eat. Now, when they line up and they're out there on the field and Russell Wilson has the opportunity to decide whether to throw it or whether to run it, based on the look, the throw was the right call. The problem is the Patriots had literally practiced that exact play in practice from the 2-yard line, and it ended up being what won them the Super Bowl. So Malcolm Butler knew what was coming, and was it Brandon Browner? Brandon Browner knew exactly what was coming too, and Brandon Browner fighting to keep from being picked out of that play and causing disruption is what allowed Malcolm Butler to get to the football. Like it's just random plays like that can change the course of history. So it's kind of crazy to think about, like whenever the draft happens, like if some of these drafts happen differently, like one player changing in a spot would cause such a catastrophic waterfall effect. Like it's a literal butterfly effect. Whatever, if say instead of Trey Lance, the 49ers took Mac Jones, now all of a sudden who wants Trey Lance and not Mac Jones. And now they take him, and then it starts a cascading effect down the line. So you just never know, man. Like the NFL, it can turn on a single play or a single pick. Don't hire Mike Smith. Always good advice. Nagy looked good because of the club dub, but I don't remember that offense being that good. Yeah, I just remember the Bears winning more than they should have. Um, and not and doing it with not terrific quarterback play. That's what I remember. Matthews blocked terrible on that. He certainly did. He didn't get his pick through. I saw Seattle process was good. New England just executed so much better and was prepared for it. That's how Bill Belichick wins games, man. That situational football in the fourth quarter, nobody's better at coaching that than him. Like his teams are always prepared for those fourth quarters. They know that all those little details, like he's talked about it before. He's like, when we're backed up on the 1 yard line, if you're an offensive lineman, you get your ass off the football. I don't care if you jump the snap, because so what? If you end up, if you end up getting it, if you end up getting a false start, you know, what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you half a yard, a couple of feet. Ain't that big of a deal. Same thing on the defensive line. If it's 4th and goal on the 1, I don't care if you get a false start or you jump the snap and you get across a little bit early. Our goal is to stop them. Like you're going to cost us a foot, so what? I'd rather you be aggressive than not. So Belichick's one of the best in the NFL at doing stuff like that. I don't know who I'm like. I think Chicago wins this. I don't know who I'll pick in terms of who ends up. I don't know. I don't even know if Chicago wins that, to be honest, because Detroit continues to fight against anybody. So again, it wasn't as close as it looked last week against Baltimore. I know everybody saw the end of the game, but there's a couple plays in there that changes the complete outlook of that game. Bears traded up for Mitch and never developed him. Fields might end up in the same boat. Yeah. I mean, Mitch looked fine in Buffalo in preseason. Belichick rule on reaching for goal line is my fave because that rule will screw 1000%. Like I understand like guys reaching over on the goal line in the middle of the field, but that whole like it's not worth it, man, to reach over at the edge. You fumble and it rolls out the side of the end zone and all of a sudden it's turnover. Not worth it. Like give me to the 1 yard line. We'll figure it out from there. All right. On to the next one. All right. Carolina and Dallas. This is actually one of the more intriguing matchups for me. So Carolina and Dallas. Dallas favored by 4. This is the first real test for this Panthers team. We talked a little bit about it on Tuesday. Are they fool's gold or are they for real? They are missing J.C. Horn. Not sure if Henderson ends up playing in this. Probably, potentially. Phil Snow, the DC for Carolina, has been dialing it up on defense so far. I'm falling in love very quickly with Phil Snow. I love what he's doing. Love how he's scheming to get pressure, even when they're not blitzing, just by some of the looks that they're giving up front. Like one of the things to watch in this particular game is watch how Snow uses his his off-ball linebackers to show pressure. Well, all of his linebackers really to show pressure, but then he'll still only bring 4. But they're able to get some one-on-ones and some free rushers because of how he lines it up. And I don't know if you guys saw the tweet that I retweeted from Jeff Schwartz, and he was breaking down the Bears and who screwed up. Like that should definitely be a weekly thing for him. Who screwed up on this play and show who screwed up on the offensive line. Like Phil Snow is going to be able to get a few of those looks where the offensive line misidentifies who they should be, and 2 guys end up blocking the same guy, and 1 guy ends up running free. Like Snow's going to be really good at that. Now, Dallas has a good offensive line, but the center spot can be taken advantage of. So if Snow can get it right, he'll create some miscommunication on that interior, and that could cause some problems for Dak. So I'm interested to see how that gets schemed up, how those interior offensive linemen are ready to adjust, how those interior linebackers line up. We tweeted out, I've seen more sugaring of the A-gaps this year than I feel like I ever have. And I don't know if there's an official stat on that or if there's anybody that could confirm that. But I feel like I've seen more teams walk 2 linebackers up over top of the center on both sides of them and then squat them there and be ready for the snap. And a lot of them, it's almost never that they bring both. They're just trying to figure out which one do you bring. And if the center picks wrong, then it puts the offensive line in a bind. And if they end up sliding left or right on the offensive line and they pick wrong, somebody's probably coming free in that situation. So really interesting to see. The Mark 318, appreciate the follow. Welcome in, brother. All right, Kellen Moore, absolutely on fire, and we talked about that as well. I think we also need to give Dak some credit because he has a ton of freedom at the line of scrimmage, and Dak is making some changes that are putting the Cowboys in some seriously positive matchups and plays. It's been a lot of fun to watch him at the line of scrimmage. I'm not sure how the Cowboys decide to attack Carolina's defense this week. I need to do some more work on this game because the Cowboys have shown an ability and a penchant for adjusting week to week on offense and what their game plan is. And this is going to be such an intriguing chess match. I think Kellen Moore is going to have to pull a few tricks out of his bag, and he's going to have to be prepared. So Kellen Moore is really good at mixing it up, on offense, right? It'll be really interesting to see how he mixes it up and plays against different things that Phil Snow is probably going to pull. And can he identify the different things that Phil Snow is going to do and prepare Dak to be ready for them? So Kellen Moore is on fire. So is Dak. Fascinating to watch that particular matchup. On defense, Dallas is much better than we anticipated. And a lot of that is because they're figuring out, one, how to get pressure, even though they're missing DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory, and also because of Trayvon Diggs, who is playing like a true number one cornerback. I will say, so everybody knows they've put Micah Parsons at defensive end, and he's done really, really well in the last couple of games in terms of rushing the passer. He's generally lined up on the left side of the defense over the right tackle, right? Or in the vicinity of the right tackle. I think the Cowboys without DeMarcus Lawrence would be better off putting Parsons on the right side of the defense over the left tackle, because we talked about it. The left side of that line, it's not very good, and it still is ripe for the picking. And so if the Cowboys do that, and Carolina is going to have to find a way to help protect that side of the line, and that removes some of the elements from the pass game that Darnold's going to be able to utilize. So again, chess match of adjustments, moves, counter moves, moves, counter moves. It stinks for the Panthers that CMC is not going to be in for this game. No JC Horn, which is massive whenever you're playing a team like the Cowboys with the dynamic wide receivers that they have. I just don't think Carolina is there yet. Even though I do think that Carolina is actually good. Like, again, this defense is a beast to deal with. I love the defense. Not sure they have enough to stop what seems like a juggernaut of a Cowboys offense, because the Cowboys have torched everyone they faced. They torched the Bucks, they torched Philly. Who else did they play? It's not like they've played the easiest of schedules either, right? I mean, you face the reigning Super Bowl champions. Philly has a solid front line, although they can definitely be thrown on. They did beat the Chargers. That's who it was. And they beat the Chargers. So, like, Dallas is a damn good football team, juggernaut of an offense. If Carolina's defense can stop this offense, then you'll never hear me doubt them again. Like, I'm still not totally convinced on Carolina's offense or defense at this point, but I'm pretty much convinced on the defense. And if they can stop this Cowboys offense, then I mean, they're easily one of the better defenses in the league. We're talking top 5, top 3 at least, if they can hold this Cowboys defense in. DJ Moore probably going to get a healthy dose of Trayvon Diggs. No, Dan Arnold might signal some more attempts for Robbie Anderson this week, or targets for Robbie Anderson. So that'll be something to watch. I don't think Carolina is going to be able to get a ton of deep threats. But we'll see. I mean, and that's the other thing is Robbie Anderson's not just a deep threat, but if you take away DJ Moore with Trayvon Diggs, then you can basically rotate the back end over top of Robbie Anderson, and you're probably going to be okay, because there's not a ton on Carolina's offense that you have to be worried about, especially whenever CMC is not in the game, because I don't think they have the playmakers. I don't think they have Terrace Marshall. Interesting, potential breakout game if they don't give him the enough attention. But outside of that, it's not like Tommy Tremble or Ian Thomas at tight end scare me. CMC's out. Chuba Hubbard probably gets a good amount of work this game. Royce Freeman probably is going to get a good amount of touches as well, because they're going to have to dig deep to figure out what to do to protect themselves against this Cowboys offense. So, and maybe they feel like they can stop this offense, but I just don't think. I think without JC Horn, that could be a problem. So that's the game I definitely want to do some more work on. Indianapolis, Miami. Not a fascinating game to me. Indy bad, Miami decent. Even with a bad offensive line, Wentz still holds the ball too. Like, he's got to know that his offensive line is bad and to get rid of the ball quickly. He has to know that his offensive line is bad. He still holds the ball, does not get rid of it quickly. And the problem on top of that is he couldn't do that on two good ankles. Now his ankles are broken and he can't move. And Miami's defense is good enough to get pressure on him, and they're one of the more blitzing defenses in the NFL. And Brissett isn't bad. Like, what I've seen from Brissett, he's good enough to win football games, and he damn near won that football game for Miami by himself last week. Like, he willed them into overtime and then willed them almost to a win in overtime. So Miami can run the ball. But this is one game that I can go ahead and tell you. I'll take Miami and the -2. I'm not sure how the line isn't higher at this point. The one thing, I guess, Indy has played with everyone that they faced this year to an extent. Like, it's not like they're getting blown out no matter who they play. They lost 28-16 against Seattle, 27-24 against the Rams, who probably should have blown them out, and then 25-16 against Tennessee. So, I mean, what are we looking at? 9, 12, and 3. And this is a 2-point game for a Miami team that's not any better. But, I mean, 2 points just probably isn't enough. 2 points definitely isn't enough to scare me away from this. Plus some Gesicki. Yeah. Yep. They're definitely going to get some Gesicki out of it tonight or this weekend. Indy should not have scored a TD versus Indy. Rams basically fumble and punt for them in the end zone. Yeah, and like, that's the thing, Gabe. Like, those are good points. Like, a lot of these games probably should have been worse, provided some of the luck didn't go Indy's way. Now, look, Indy hasn't had a whole lot of luck in terms of injuries and stuff like that. But on the field, I feel like there have been a few balls that have bounced their way that have made these games probably closer than what they should be. So I'm not going to be taking Indy anytime soon. And if Wentz isn't healthy, why are we still playing him? Why are we putting a first round pick at risk? Like, sit his butt down and say, hey, we need Wentz to get healthy because his ankles clearly aren't right. And let's make sure we don't get that particular, put him on IR. Like, hey, you know what? High ankle sprain. He re-injured his ankle, that high ankle sprain that he's got, because he's got a low ankle sprain in one, high ankle sprain in the other, or maybe it's two low ankles. But say it's a high ankle sprain. Put him on IR. Say, hey, buddy, you got to sit down, take one for the team. It's going to be fine. And maybe they still feel like they can win because, hey, we played with the Rams, right? Or 27-24. But you're not playing with the Rams. And after this, you got a couple other big games. Like, you're going to get Miami, then you're going to get Baltimore, Houston. You may get your first. Actually, I would take Houston in that game. Then you got San Francisco and Tennessee. So, like, after your first 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, you're probably going to be 1-7 at best. So, like, let's not overdo it here. Let's sit Wentz and make sure we keep that first round pick and screw Philadelphia in the meantime. So, yeah, it doesn't make any sense to continue to play Wentz unless here's the thing, for us as teams, like us as fans, we can sit back and we have more of an objective opinion, especially of teams that aren't our own. But from being inside of a locker room and inside of a team, these coaches feel like they can take a bad player and make them good. They feel like they feel always overestimate their teams. Like pretty much every team in the NFL thinks that they have a shot at the Super Bowl come week 1. So we'll see. Crossover, they should also sit Wentz because 70% of the snap share mark if he meets their pick. Right, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I think it's 75%, but yeah, like put his ass on the bench and put him on IR and just don't worry about it. Like, I think they're only playing him right now because they still think that they can win. And Frank Reich may feel like he's playing for his position right now to be able to stick around for next year and not get fired. But Wentz ain't helping you do that right now, dude. And I get it. Jacob Eason ain't going to be the guy either. And neither is Brett Hundley. But just in case you are around next year, take one for the team. Put Wentz on the bench, put him on IR, and just take the L, man. Almost Harry. Wentz looked like a tree in that pocket. I think that's trees move. They sway at least a little bit. Wentz didn't even sway. That dude was walking on two wooden feet. All right. Let's see. Let's move on. Cleveland, Minnesota. So I tweeted this out earlier this week, and the response was about what I thought it would be. I said, what if I told you the Vikings were good? Would you believe me? And turns out no one believes me. I don't know if it's just the hatred for Cousins or and it can be just because of who he is. It can be there's a lot of people that take offense with his vaccination status and the way he's handled that, not just not being vaccinated, but the way he's handled it. And then he can be a bit of an asshole sometimes too. Let's just be real about it. But anyways, I will say Minnesota's offense has been terrific. They can run the ball, man. Like Madison last week, hard to tell that wasn't Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins is as accurate as he has ever been. He's been super accurate thus far. The receivers are terrific. They can run as well as anyone in the league. The only issue that I see of this offense is the O-line could be a major problem this week. Myles Garrett and that Browns defense embarrassed the Bears last week. And I don't think it's that bad this week, but Rashad Hill is hurt. He may or may not play. Ezra Cleveland and Udo aren't terrific at guard. And those guards are going to see Garrett lined up over them. Like he's not just going to rush from one spot. So the Browns love to find positive matchups on defense and then just hammer that until the other team adjusts. The Bears didn't adjust last week, and Myles Garrett it was a positive matchup no matter where he lined up. So the Browns are good on defense. Allen Robinson might as well just not even shown up to the game because Denzel Ward put him in a cage and just took him out of the game completely. So the Vikings cornerbacks aren't good. So as far as the Browns on offense, they're going to be able to move the ball. Potentially they could get some pressure against the Browns offense. They can potentially get some pressure. Browns O-line is good. Browns O-line is the problem is Vikings aren't going to be able to get enough pressure to protect Rashad Breeland. Like he's been bad. We've talked about it a bunch. Like if you don't have good corners, you better have a good pass rush. And I think the Vikings can get after a quarterback with a bad line. I don't know that they have enough firepower up front to be able to get enough pressure on Baker Mayfield to be able to protect that backside, to protect their DBs. So it feels like Minnesota's going to be able to move the ball. It feels like Cleveland's going to be able to move the ball. Danielle Hunter is going to be he's going to be a big player in this game. The only way that I see the Vikings stopping the Browns offense is if Zimmer just comes up with one of those game plans that he does once or twice a year where he just puts the other team in a box and doesn't let them out. And you actually saw that last week against Seattle. And part of it's on Seattle, but last week against Seattle, they didn't score a point in the second half. So, and a lot of that was due to the changes that Minnesota made on defense. So it can be done. And I don't think the Minnesota defense is bad. Let's take a look and see what they are. Minnesota's defense on where is Minnesota? Minnesota's defense is 25th. Okay, they're bad. They're not great. They're not even average. So, but I also think that they've played. I mean, they played Arizona, right? When Arizona was lit them up, and they played Seattle. Seattle, it looked like they couldn't be stopped in the first half. So I'm super excited to see how this matchup plays out. I actually think this is a good game. Like Minnesota is +2 in this. I would guess that this line probably moves to +3, and if it's +3, I would take Minnesota. At +2, I'm not sure because it does feel like a very close game. So super fascinated in the way that this game plays out. I think the Browns are better, but for some reason I want to lean Minnesota. And it may just be because I I want to be right about calling them good, but maybe this isn't the game to kind of stick that flag in the ground. They are probably going to need more time to do that. And I don't let's see who they play. Let's see who Minnesota plays over the next few weeks cuz even without I think they're going to play a good game against the Browns. I don't think the Browns are going to run away with this by any means. But then Minnesota gets Detroit, Carolina, Dallas, Baltimore, Chargers, Green Bay, San Francisco. Okay. Well, they better get a win this week. They better get a win against Detroit. If they do that for both weeks, I'm probably going to pick them against Carolina, provided Carolina doesn't show off and doesn't look like they're just massive. That they're just this juggernaut team that we didn't expect. I just realized it is time for football. Let me I'm gonna have to pull this up. Let me do it this. That's not gonna work. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna wait. I would wait for that line to move. I feel like that line is gonna move for I feel like that line's gonna move in favor of Cleveland because I just don't feel like anybody has a good handle on how good Minnesota is, but everybody wants to favor Cleveland. And if it does move to 3 points, I would take Minnesota all day long. All right, where do I gotta go? What is Thursday night football? Who's got Thursday night football this week? I feel like this is important information that I should probably know before coming on the stream and saying I'm gonna do that. Oh no, cart for shark. Oh yeah, Seattle getting Tyler Lockett hurt was there. Was probably bad. When is Allen Robinson requesting his trade to Baltimore? Man, but here's the thing: if Hollywood Brown can catch the ball last week, and pretty much any week, like that team looks like they're pretty damn good. So, all right, NFL Network. Let me move this. NFL Network. I'm gonna stream this up. It's not on Amazon tonight, right? Because at some point they're gonna start streaming it on Amazon. Watch NFL Network Live. Let's go. Sorry. Pause in momentary pause in broadcasting as we go through the games. I just want to get this up. I'll pull up like a little don't want to do this. I need to figure out how to get like I need a little widget is what I need. All right, Jags Bengals. Let me pull this up. Why are you not pulling up? Let's go. Oh, you know what? Let me make sure that I have I'm going to turn desktop audio off. That way I'm not getting smacked with a DMCA violation because I had that on. Oh, I didn't mean to do that either. One memento, please. I appreciate you guys hanging out, bearing with me. Again, this is only my second sidecast, and probably not going to go full sidecast and leave the thing up like we did last week because I want to focus on the game, on the actual like talking through games still, and we'll talk about I've already authenticated. Bastards. All right. So that is Cleveland, Minnesota. Fascinated to see how that game turns out. Definitely going to be one. Another one of the games I want to do some work on too, because I thought Cleveland pulled out some stuff last week that they, crap. I thought they pulled out some stuff last week that they hadn't pulled out before, and I thought that was weird for them to do it against a Bears team that wasn't very good. That they just completely embarrassed last week. By the way. All right. What else? New York Giants and New Orleans. That's what's up next. All right. New York Giants. Listen, I've been banging on the New York Giants all season long. Um, I feel like I need to take it easy on them because I've done nothing but hammer them. So let's find something good to talk about. Um, the one thing that I noticed is I feel like Kadarius Toney is probably the best wide receiver uh on this particular roster, and he really needs to get more of a feature in the offense. Like he's he's being wasted by not being the focal point, I think. And I think the Giants feel like he's a good rookie, but every time he gets the ball in his hands, he's able to make something happen, and they're too busy trying to prove themselves right by throwing to these other guys. So just figure out that Tony is good. Give him some opportunities in space, and I think you're going to see that he's a pretty damn good player. The other thing I'd say is Daniel Jones is having a good season. Like he looks solid in every game, and he continues to get better and better. And if he continues on the progression from year to year that he's been on, like he could potentially end up being a really good quarterback. And he's got to continue this level of play all this season and then get better next season, which is a lot to ask in a really bad Giants team. But it's not impossible. I mean, we all thought Josh Allen was going to be horrible, and look at what he's doing now. So, progression is definitely possible as a QB. And as far as good stuff, that's about all I got for the Giants. There's not a whole lot more going on until they figure out what the hell they want to do. I can't really say much. New Orleans goes as Jameis goes. It's not out of the question that the Giants win this game, but I just don't think they create enough on defense to cause Jameis any sort of heartburn or create any sort of Jameis bad plays. New Orleans gets another week to kind of figure it out on offense. Like I feel like they don't really know what they're doing on offense. The defense probably dominates again this week for New Orleans. I do want to see Jameis push the ball down the field, and I'm like 90% sure he's going to start getting subbed out inside of the 20, probably a lot, and I would imagine especially inside of the 10. Like we'll see if that happens, but I would expect to see Taysom Hill a lot more inside of the 20, especially inside of the 10, because Jameis cannot make good decisions in those tight areas, and he continues to make stupid plays. One of his touchdowns was a bad Jameis, and he just happened to get lucky last week. And I don't think Sean Payton wants any part of that. Plus, Sean Payton has a weird fascination with Taysom Hill and loves the idea of Hill down there probably. So we'll see. Jags have been running heavy to start. Almasari, good call out. I like that. Baltimore should have Bateman back. That's going to be a big deal if they get Bateman, Brown, and Watkins. Very solid three with their depth guys. Gabe, I agree. And Andrews is tight. Andrews is clearly their best receiving option right now. He's at least the most consistent. And then adding Robinson here, here's the thing. Like if we want to talk about, there's a couple of running back trades that have been out there in the ether for a bit. That I thought was really interesting. Somebody talked about who was it? Somebody going to the 49ers. Damn it, I'm trying to remember. There was somebody talking about trading, like sending like a Saquon to the 49ers. Like we know that Saquon's not going to be good in New York. Why not send him to here's the thing, the Giants believe that Saquon is still the savior. And so they're not going to go through that. So we'll see. Like it wouldn't surprise me to see the 49ers do it. I don't think so. I think they like their running backs, but we'll see. Gettleman is a unique football mind. Guy's a savant. Grizz, 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 Grizz. I know you need a sarcasm font, but unique is an interesting word. I wouldn't say he has a football mind. He has a unique mind. We'll see. Only all season Giants fans have had no faith in Gettleman all year. Yeah. Poor man, I feel bad. What is going on in New York? Is there like something in the water that like did they piss off the world to make them to basically say like, hey, you're not gonna be able to have a good football team? Like we're like, hey, we're gonna give you Eli, and he's gonna be good enough and give you some hope, and then we're just gonna fucking crush you for the next like 3 years or 4 years or 10 years probably at this point. Yeah. Poor Giants and Jets fans. Sorry, I'm trying to get logged in here to watch the game while we talk some football. We still got a couple really bad games. So Tennessee, we can talk Tennessee, New York Jets. Tennessee good, Jets bad. Even if AJ Brown and AJ Brown and Julio Jones, there's a chance that both of them are out this week. And here's the thing, even if they're out, I still think Tennessee is by far the better team. Their Jets are +7, so Tennessee to cover, even with Julio and AJ Brown out. Like it feels like a lot. I don't know that I could pull the trigger on that, but it's just I have no faith in the Jets right now. There's nothing in me whatsoever says that the Jets have the ability to keep up with the Titans. Now, I will say that there's some weird stuff that could potentially happen that keeps them in it, a couple turnovers, which is certainly possible with a guy like Ryan Tannehill, but they're only going to use Tannehill whenever they absolutely have to, right? Like they're not going to, when you have Derrick Henry is priority number one, and doesn't matter if they're trailing or not, they're going to end up letting Derrick Henry eat because they did it against the Seahawks, and they weren't at all afraid of running the ball and trying to come back against the Seahawks, even when they were down by I think like 2 touchdowns, and it worked. So they're not going to be afraid of it now, especially against a team like the Jets. I feel like for the Jets, Wilson probably spends another game in the blender. He clearly is not seeing the field right now. Like he's just not. You can tell that he's not seeing the field very well. And it's not ghosts. It's not like he's like really trying to avoid pressure and just completely escaping a clean pocket all the time. It happens a little bit, but that happens to rookies. So we'll see. But I don't. If he doesn't actually see the field, there's not a whole lot he can do. What else do we want to talk about? Crowder's potentially back this week. Elijah Moore doesn't look like he's playing. Crowder's potentially back. That may help because so when we talk about not having like young quarterbacks and not having enough time to throw and potentially getting sacked and stuff like that, like the best way to not get sacked is to get rid of the ball quickly. And what do you need to do with that? One, you need to have the right play call that allows you to do that. So if your offense coordinator is calling nothing but vertical routes and calling 7-step drops, then you're just the offense doesn't align to what you need to do. Having an offensive line helps, but it's probably further down the list. The other important thing for having a good quick game is having a wide receiver that can get open quickly off the line of scrimmage. And so far the Jets haven't had that. And Crowder's the type of guy that can do that. So him coming back could potentially help. They'll need to adjust on that offense. Even like Elijah Moore not playing is bad. Offensive line is bad. Wilson himself holds on to the ball too much, so they got to coach him to get rid of it quicker. Even his own offensive line called him out about it last week. He's like, we got to get better up front, but Wilson needs to let go of the ball. Like he needs to throw the ball on time too. Denzel Mims not activated yet. It'll be interesting to see if Mims. It'll be interesting to see if Mims ends up playing this week or at least being active. Like I don't understand why he's active. There's so many people that believe that he's a good player. Apparently the Jets don't. And again, at some point we kind of have to trust what they're telling us and that hey, maybe he's not ready. Now they could just be completely misevaluating the situation, but there's something weird going on that doesn't align. So I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. That'll be something interesting to watch. Um what else? Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's it. Jets aren't good on defense. They're not good on offense. Wilson holds the ball too long. Not really a whole lot going on. Tennessee's -7, even without AJ Brown and Julio Jones. Okay, still probably taking them. Derrick Henry 40 carries incoming. They may split it up in this game. They may be ahead by so much crossover that they don't have to worry about it. All right, let's go back. Moore is a bad owner and got lucky for 2 Super Bowls. I can't argue with that, Gabe. Omasari, the only way I've survived football the past 6+ years is seeing the Jets being just as bad as we are. Oh, Omasari, you're a Giants fans? It's probably good that you haven't been here the last couple of shows because we've just been hammering them. Mara's got to get it together. Mara needs to hire a third party and then actually listen to what they say. And when I say third party, I don't mean Ernie Accorsi, who's going to tell him exactly what he wants to hear and is an old buddy of his. Like they need to hire Corn and Ferry or whatever the hell that company is that the NFL uses every year for like their head coaching searches, as if we don't already know who the best coaching options are. But we'll see. Um, it all went downhill and Odell started fighting kicking. Yeah. Derrick Henry 40 carries incoming. Yep. So we'll see. Tennessee, New York Jets. That's the end of that. All right, KC Philly. This is actually an interesting one. So Kansas City, Philly +7. Let me start with Kansas City is going to be just fine. They have played the hardest schedule in the NFL. They face Cleveland, Baltimore, and the Chargers. We don't. Ooh, and McPherson just missed his first kick of the year, 43 yards. That stinks. 0-0. What time have we left? Oh, Urban Meyer. Yes, thank you. We got lucky. Urban's cheering a missed field goal. 5:21 left in the first. Urban's cheering a missed field goal, like they just scored the game winning field goal in the championship game. Like you shouldn't be that excited about it. How much Mailata missing matters in the line for you? Not honestly, not a lot. I mean, I don't. It definitely matters, right? Because it means that Jones or Frank Clark are gonna have a little bit less resistance in getting to Jalen Hurts. I don't think Jalen Hurts does a great job of keeping the pressure away from him by himself. Um, KC's still a good team, and I'm starting to fade on Philly. Like after watching the game, I think this is going to be a very up and down team all season. I think when Philly gets bullied, they're going to collapse like they did this week. Like when Dallas started bullying them, they wanted nothing to do with it. I just don't think they have the right pieces in place, and Brandon Graham injury really hurts. Like that defensive line is still pretty good, but not having BG is painful for them. Speaking of Hurts, like it's really starting to feel like if it's a bad team, he can light them up like a la Atlanta. But when he faces a good team, I think he's going to struggle a bit. It feels like the Eagles are trying to win on big plays, and they don't really have the receiving core to do that. And Hurts can hit those passes, but he also underthrows a lot of them, which you saw will get him picked off a good amount. So they have a good enough offensive line, but even without Mailata, it's good enough. With Mailata, it's pretty good. But I just don't think this combo of Hurts, Devontae Smith, Jalen Rager, Greg Ward, Quez Watkins, like I don't feel like this is a great overall team. And the tight ends seem to be a secondary part of this offense, and that's disappointing because they should be the primary focal point of the offense, in my opinion. Then the run game, then the wide receiver. So tight end, run game, wide receivers. And I just don't see them putting it together on offense right now. And they may still find that groove eventually. Like Sirianni could still just be trying to figure out exactly how he wants to manage his personnel and call these games, but they're not there yet. And I don't have a ton of optimism that they do get there. Um, Eagles they're good on D line even without Graham. They're not dominant. Um, and that impacts the secondary in a big way. Like they're not that terrific. Um, I feel like the secondary we've talked about it again. Like this front is no longer in a position that they're going to be able to protect the secondary in a way that is going to be impactful from week to week. Um, the Eagles feel like they're not a very good team and not a bad team right now. Just very middling. And by the way, like Jalen Hurts, we're starting to wonder like where does he fit in the echelon and in the tiers of quarterbacks? And not every quarterback has to be amazing. Not every quarterback has to be awful. Like there are guys that are going to fit right in the middle. And some guys are going to fit in the middle because they're like Andy Daltons who are just consistently in the middle. And then there are guys that are really good some days and really bad other days. And I think Jalen Hurts probably falls into that category where he's going to be really good on some days and he's going to be really bad on some days, depending on the matchups, depending on how his wide receivers are playing, depending on the protection that he gets, depending on how Sirianni calls, and then depending on himself. We've seen it from game to game. Some quarterbacks, and Jay Cutler was this way, some quarterbacks, they'll have a game where they just cannot miss. They are just absolutely on fire, super precise with every ball that they throw. And then there are some games where they just completely miss. And there are a couple of games where Jay Cutler every year was going to throw 4 to 6 interceptions, somewhere in that range. And he consistently did that. There was a couple of games every year he threw at least 4 interceptions because either he wasn't seeing the field, accuracy was off, whatever it might be. Jalen Hurts, it's still way too early to tell. Don't get me wrong. Like we're not like saying this is who he is, but this is the feeling that I'm starting to get at this point. So we'll see. Let's see. Crossover. Eagles O-line cannot stay healthy for their lives. I feel like they always end up having problems staying healthy on both sides of the ball. I don't know what it is, but they were super hurt last year at the wide receiver position, especially. So again, from year to year, it feels like it's been hard to put our finger on exactly who they are. How did Philly run with a running back 3 times? That's the lowest in NFL history, and they split it. Yeah. Miles Sanders got 2 carries, one of the more dynamic runners, I think, in my opinion. And he got 2 carries. Sorry, I'm watching this Trevor Lawrence and 11 personnel rolls out left. Oh, here's the run. Hey, does he have 16 rushing yards yet? Let me get this game cast up. Let's just do ESPN. ESPN will have it up. Because he just ran for like 10 there, I think. So I think I'm not sure what Jalen Hurts is yet. There's some positive signs, there's some not so positive signs, and I think we're gonna have to wait. I think the Chiefs have a big bounce back game here. I don't see any part of Philly that feels like it's gonna take over. You can run on the Chiefs, you can throw on the Chiefs if you have good enough receivers. Devontae Smith being smaller probably doesn't help. They're going to be able to body him a little bit. Some teams are absolutely going to do that. The tight ends, man, I just do not understand why the tight ends are not being used more. Makes no sense whatsoever. Let's see. Trevor Lawrence 30 passing yards. Where's my box score? Trevor Lawrence, 1 rush, 11 yards. All right. Well, as long as he has another rush, we're probably going to get there on the 16.5. I understand you have to throw when you're behind, and throwing more is not bad 100%. But yeah, that does not do anything to help my QB. By the way, that pick six when Smith fell was a pick six no matter. Yeah, exactly. 100%. I totally agree with you. And yes, I am vehemently against running the ball all the time just to run the ball, but there are situations where it makes sense. And we've talked about it. When there's a light box, it makes 1,000% sense to run the ball into that. If there's 6 guys in the box, run the damn ball, unless it's like 3rd and 20 or something like that, right? Like if they're going to give you a light box and run lanes, then absolutely utilize it. Like don't be afraid to run the ball. And again, just to run the ball, doesn't necessarily. Oh, look at that, James Robinson. Weird, guys. It's almost like we know what we're talking about. How many carries does he have so far? James Robinson. Here, I need to shrink this a little bit. Oh, come back. James Robinson, 7 rushes, 35 yards, 5 a carry, and a touchdown. Weird, guys. Weird. Amazing. I'm just honestly, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that that Urban Meyer decided to figure out how to actually play football like a team and not just like an offense. So good for them. All right, that's Casey Philly. I don't know who 7 points feels not enough in this particular game. Like it could be 10 and I would probably still pick Casey in this particular game. Mina said it super well on NFL Live. She was like, I'm not against the ball. I'm against running into a brick wall when talking about Dallas, like after the charge. Exactly. Like here's the thing. If you can run for 6 yards a carry and you can continuously get first downs, there's no reason for you to ever throw the ball. It's way less risky. You're gonna drain the shit out of the defense. And you're never gonna have to put the ball in the air. Like, get your first downs, keep moving the ball down, and oh, by the way, you can continue to do the same thing in the red zone. Like with the pass game, once you get in the red zone, you kind of have to be a little more precise about it, and potentially change up what you want to do when the field condenses. The run game, you don't have to do that. Doesn't matter. So yeah. So if you could run it 60 times like in the old days and actually get first downs every 2 or 3 downs, you'd be just fine. But that's not the way the game works today. And like I said, when the situation presents itself, go for it. All right, let's talk about Arizona and the Rams. So I'll say this: Rams favored by 4 in LA. I've started on some film for this game. I started on it today, but I'm not nearly as far along in it as I would like. But I will say I'm beginning to realize why it's hard for me to wrap my head around Arizona, because I was looking at this team and this defense, and it is a unique mishmash of athletes that don't seem to fit together. But in a way, they kind of do, because they can fly all over the place and they can get to the football and they can tackle and they do a lot of things really well. They're well coached. And then on top of that, like the offense could hit like an 80-yard bomb, and then they could also make a dumb mistake and give the ball back in a heartbeat. I just don't know about this team, because I know that they're good, but they seem to have some weird misses here and there on both sides of the ball. And that kind of annoys me. And it means they're hard to nail down, because it just makes them hard to predict. When you're not consistent, it's hard to predict volatility. It's the point of volatility. You can't predict it. So Joseph is a good DC as well. Yes. Yeah, I agree, Gabe. I've actually been really impressed by what he's been able to do with such a weird group of players. And I say weird in like a positive way. I'm interested to see where Jalen Ramsey plays in this game. He's been sliding around a little bit more and playing in the slot more. So when Arizona goes to run, it helps to have Jalen Ramsey in the slot if you're playing 3 cornerbacks. If you're in nickel, putting Jalen Ramsey in the slot is really good, because he's as for a cornerback, he's really good against the run. Um, so I like the idea of putting him there. Um, it, it's gonna help him against the run game. It's also gonna help. They're gonna be able to potentially use him if they're in zone. He's gonna be able to keep his eyes on Kyler and kind of keep Kyler from scrambling all over the place. He's fast enough, long enough to be able to go get Kyler. And I think they're gonna be chasing Kyler all over the place. Because I think that's the thing. Like the other question I have for the Rams defense is how do they play Kyler at the edges? A lot of Kyler's big plays happen outside of the pocket. So do they try to tame the defensive ends and ask them to play more of a contain and not just go straight for the quarterback, not get pushed out of the play, not get too far upfield? Or do they just say, go get him and we'll live and die by what we can get out of that? The Rams generally aren't that aggressive. So I'm thinking it's probably more contain and then let Aaron Donald potentially win on the inside. And maybe that can create some additional center pocket push and some pressure up the middle. And if they can get pressure, then that means that you're probably going to get more bad Kyler than good Kyler. And that's definitely something that you want because bad Kyler can hand you the game. Um, so I mean, you definitely don't want Kyler taking low chance plays. You want or taking high chance plays. You want Kyler taking low chance plays that turn into turnovers. Because if you don't keep Kyler in the pocket, he can fill up a top 10 highlight reel all by himself. So I don't anticipate the Rams having too much of an issue on offense with the Cardinals defense, but the matchups are going to be very different from what they face with the Bucks. Like they're going to see a lot more man coverage versus Arizona. They probably won't have the ability to get over the top of the defense as much as they did against the Bucks. The Rams are now number 1 in offensive DVOA, 13th in defensive DVOA. So I can see them taking more of like a midline game plan than what they did versus the Bucks, which was more on the aggressive side. And then what they'll do is they'll take even more aggressive shots when the game presents those opportunities. So, and that's on offense, right? Like, and I think Arizona's probably going to invite the run. The Rams will say, "Sure, we'll take 6-7 yards of carry if you're going to give it to us." Arizona's 4th overall in DVOA, while the Rams are 3rd overall. Cards are 8th on offense, 6th on defense. So I feel like there needs to be a weekly volatility metric for DVOA. Like maybe I need to talk to Football Outsiders guys against that. Like is because to me I feel like the Rams are going to be 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 1, 1, 2. Like that's how their weeks are going to go in terms of DVOA. Whereas I feel like Arizona is going to be more like 1, 17, 1, 12, 12, 1, 1, 18, 5. Like I feel like they're going to be all over the place. So we're going to see. Anyone loving these Bengals unis? They're all the all orange. Oh, I love the orange unis. I'm so happy that NFL brought back alternates and allow it. The Bucks are going to get to play in creamsicles. I don't remember if it's this year or next year, but I'm just excited that the creamsicles are going to be there. So it looks like the Jags are, from everything that I've seen, it looks like the Jags are actually pulling off the game plan that we talked about earlier, which I'm fascinated by. Oh, they're gonna let the quarter end. Okay, we can keep going. So yeah, I wonder what the volatility, if there's a volatility metric. I mean, I know there's Dave, but I'm curious about like if Football Outsiders can measure volatility from team to team, week to week. So I don't have a prediction about this game yet. It feels hard not to take the Rams after watching the whooping that they put on the Bucks last week, especially with them playing at home. But this feels like it could be a very weird and wonky game because Arizona is involved and they always play in those types of games. Plus, it's in the toughest division. Plus, it's I just got distracted by Gabe. Those Bucks jerseys are amazingly awful. Gabe? Are you talking about the creamsicle? Don't make me ban you. Those are the best outside of the powder blue unis for San Diego. The creamsicle, top 2 ever in the history of the NFL. How dare you, Gabe? I am so disappointed in you right now. Listen, you've been here enough. I'll give you a pass this one time, but the creamsicle are some of the greatest to ever grace the field of the NFL. All right, let's see. What's next? So we did Arizona, Los Angeles, Seattle, San Francisco. So again, another. Oh, I didn't realize. So all 4 NFC West teams are actually playing against each other this week. Fascinating. Arizona and the Rams is going to be a barn burner, I feel like. Seattle, San Francisco, a little bit different. Definitely a fun NFC West matchup. I think these are 2 teams that it's hard to know exactly where they fit in the division. Like, we have an idea that the Rams are probably at top of the division. Arizona, kind of the same way. I mean, they're 3-0, but they could really be like 1-2, and they didn't exactly have the greatest first half against the Jags last week. So, with Seattle and San Francisco, not totally sure where they fit in. Like, Seattle's 1-2, San Francisco's 2-1, and San Francisco hasn't really played the best. So, like, Jimmy G's had some issues with accuracy. I don't think that's particularly normal for him. At least if the throw is open, he doesn't really miss. Russ is cooking, but that offense was shut out in the second half last week versus Minnesota because of some very basic adjustments by Zimmer in that defense. So, Seattle's defense is just really bad right now. Like, they want to play a 4-man rush and off coverage with Flowers and Reed, and they're not good enough or fast enough to run this defense like they want. They're not getting pressure. Last week, Cousins took the shorter throws when they were there, and then when Seattle started to take him away, like, he just started throwing behind. Like, when they started moving up, he just started throwing behind those guys, and they had a good amount of the Minnesota receivers had a good amount of time to run after the catch. Like, the Seattle defense wasn't collapsing as quickly as they could. Seattle, they can't figure out how to use Jamal Adams. Adams is he is the definition of a movable chess piece at strong safety, and yet the Seahawks are playing checkers with him. And it's a pretty simple scheme, and they just play him like all the other guys on this defense. They kind of did a good amount last year of movement last year with them, but they're not as creative this year as they were last year. It was like, oh, I got my pretty new toy. Let me figure out all the different ways I can play for him. Next year, you're like, I might play with him every once in a while, not as much, right? So, I think San Francisco should have a field day with the Seattle defense. And I think they're going to dink and dunk into the short and intermediate holes. I think Shanny is the best at getting his receivers into open space. I think he's the best in the NFL at that. And there's going to be a lot of space for them to run against the Seahawks. The San Francisco defense isn't a juggernaut by any means, but they're pretty good. I tend to lean San Francisco because Seattle doesn't seem to be stopping anyone at this point. Seattle's 24th in DVOA on defense. Seattle hasn't been everything that I've thought that they should be so far. They've actually underwhelmed me based on what my expectations were of them, especially on offense. But Seattle seems like a pretty good antidote for all the LSU on offense, right? Like, going into there doesn't necessarily make them like, going and playing Seattle is kind of what's going to make San Francisco probably figure out exactly what they need to do. Wouldn't surprise me to see Trey Lance in a couple of extra plays this game too. I think that'll be fascinating. Let's see. Those Bucks jerseys are amazingly awful. I mean it in a good way, though. I don't mind for the game. Okay. You redeemed yourself. I will not hear any slander against the creamsicle. Let Russ cook in the second half too. They did. They just couldn't get anything done, and it was Minnesota. Minnesota. they decided that they wanted to try to figure out ways to get to Russ and move him off of his spot rather than just letting him sit back there. And it was all of a sudden like Russ couldn't hit a wide receiver to save his life at that point. They use Adams like Cam more than like Derwin James. Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like they should be using Adams like who's the linebacker for the Ravens that literally played like all 12 or all 11 positions on the field. Oh my God, he played next to Ray Lewis. I can't remember who it was, but like they need to literally line him up in 12 different positions. Line him up in the slot, let him blitz off the corner. Line him up over the center and let him blitz from the middle. Like use him to create chaos and make the other team figure it out. You know what he's going to do. They don't. So crossover, is it me or Pete Carroll not get enough heat? I feel like everything outside of Wilson and the wide receivers, everything is underwhelming. It hasn't improved. I hear you. The other problem is that they've been consistently good for a while. So like they continue to be near the top of that division every year. And it's hard to get rid of a coach that has you in the playoffs and that has a really good relationship with your GM. Hard to get rid of a guy like that. Omasari Lawrence was very late on that third down throw. Should have been there by the time Austin turned around. I missed it. I really need to like pay a little bit more attention to this game. Gabe, Pete Carroll, not bad enough to be fired, not good enough to win at this point. I think at some point retiring may be the best for both sides. I mean, he's 70 something, right? I feel like Lynch got a lot of credit for that roster. I don't see it. Yeah, so that defense looked a lot better. Man, Joe Burrow he makes this look easy. When he gets protection, he makes playing quarterback look easy. That's kind of my point. He's not bad enough to fire, but that's pretty much because of Wilson. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like a lot of times Wilson bails out some of that coaching staff a good amount. Man, the Jags had no pressure there. Are the Jags getting any pressure whatsoever tonight? Because I feel like they're not. But I've only seen like a handful of plays. Blitz off the top. Oh, they blitz from the corner too. They blitz too. Burrow didn't see it. They showed the slot, but didn't show the other corner from the other side. Adalius Thomas. Yes. Thank you. I could not remember who that was. All right. What's next? Did Seattle, San Francisco? San Francisco -3. I feel like San Francisco wins this game. I don't know by how much. 11 drop back, 2 knockdowns. Oh, it's not bad. I mean, it's better than what they have been giving Burrow. So we'll see. Man, I love Joe Mixon. Easily one of the better running backs in the NFL. Better all around running backs too. See, this is a situation. You're in 2nd and 10 and you want to, or it wasn't even 2nd and 10. 2nd and 16 and you run it to Joe Mixon. Like where in your mind is that a good play call? Like, where do you go? You know what? 2nd and 16. You know what I should do right here? Me as Zach Taylor. I should run Joe Mixon up the middle with a fullback. I don't get it. And now you're spreading out. So we've talked about this a little bit. So empty is good. And you can watch this with, you can watch this a lot tonight because the Bengals love to do this. Oh, Burrow, what are you doing? He was out of bounds. That was stupid, Joe. So, you'll be able to see this a good amount with Cincinnati tonight. So empty as a protection when you're spreading out five wide receivers is actually a pretty good formation for blocking. And the reason for that is when you have 3 wide receivers out here and 2 over here and they're spread a decent spread for the like when you do that and you bring them in close, it doesn't make sense. But when you spread them out like the Bengals were there, then basically what happens is the defense now has to show you where they're blitzing from. Because if you've got a guy that's all the way out in the corner slot and he needs the blitz, he knows he's not going to be able to get to the quarterback from where he's at. And by the way, if he's blitzing from out there, that safety's not already showing. So by the way, like Burrow's going to be able to see if there's a safety that comes down over that cornerback, that guy's probably blitzing from that side. So he knows that if that guy's coming, that safety is going to fill in. Now he starts looking to the opposite side, knowing he's going to have pressure. That's when you start getting into hot routes, right? And if you walk two guys into the middle, you know that either one of those guys is going to have to bail or you're going to have a guy wide open because you're not going to be able to rush six with five blocking while I've got five out into routes, right? And anytime you run empty, you're always going to have one quick outlet, especially on third and long, to be able to get there. So it helps with the offensive line, and you can see it. You can see it on that last one. Jags went wide 9. They had two tackles like lined up over the A gaps, and then the defensive ends were way out on the edge. And so you know that those guys are coming. You know where the other guys are coming from. There was nobody else showing blitz, so you can assume that nobody else is coming. And if they're bringing more than 5, somebody's going to be open. If they're bringing 5, you know you got one-on-one, and you better know which matchup you like the most out of the wide receivers that you have and the cornerbacks that they're up against, because you're probably going to have a single high safety if they're not blitzing. And if they're not, then if they have 2 high safeties, then you definitely are going to have somebody open. So it really makes it easy for a quarterback to run. He doesn't have to think a ton about it because those looks and those things are quick for a quarterback. So just something to watch, because you're going to get it a lot tonight with the Bengals. They've done that a lot this year. They love empty whenever it gets into long passing downs for whatever reason, and they get themselves there for a lot, as you can tell. Burrow gets sacked, and then they're like, oh, it's 2nd and 16. Let's run. Makes no sense. Crossover. Still can't believe Taylor got hired because he had lunch with Sean McVay every day for a couple of years. Yes. There was an offensive assistant that is now the offensive coordinator for Kentucky in college. And this is only from like 2 or 3 years ago. He seems to be a pretty good kid, but and knows what he's doing, and has called a much better offense in Kentucky than he has for a while. But basically, anyone who's shaken hands with Sean McVay is basically like a hot commodity in the NFL right now. And I mean, look, like, think about it this way. Like, it took Brady 12 or 13 weeks to get Gase cough. Yeah, exactly. It took Brady 12 or 13 weeks to get into the feel of an offense, and for him to be able to convince Leftwich to change his offense enough to work with him. And it took them that long to really figure it out. And that's the GOAT, right? He played for 20 years. And now all of a sudden Stafford comes into McVay's offense and looks like he's run it for 10 years. Like, it's amazing how easy it has been for Stafford to step in. And he opens up that offense for Sean McVay because he's just so much better than Goff ever thought about being. So, yeah. He was number 2 QB coach last year, then hired by Stoops. There you go. So, yeah, like, I mean, I guess moving from QB coach to Kentucky offensive coordinator isn't like it's that big of a gap, right? But I mean, it's an SEC job, and if he does well there, and Kentucky has a good defense. Stoops has fielded a good defense. There's Kentucky players spread all throughout the NFL on the defensive side of the ball right now, and offensive linemen too. So we'll see. But yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, LaFleur, who was it? LaFleur. Trying to think of LaFleur. Arthur Smith. Was Arthur Smith part of the Sean McVay tree? He was main OC in 2016. So it's also just about moving up. Got it. Yeah. All right, let's talk about it. So it's 7-0, 10:23 left in the second quarter, 3rd and 2. Guy down on the field for Jaguars. Pitt Green Bay. So we're probably not going to spend a lot of time on Pitt Green Bay. So Green Bay -6.5. This is a Najee Harris game if I've ever seen one. Ben absolutely fell off a cliff. And it's pretty evident that he should have retired this year. That Green Bay defense rose from the dead last week. I'm not sure it's here to stay. I still don't believe in Joe Barry, and I haven't had a chance to go back and look at exactly what they changed, but I definitely want to go back because San Francisco isn't an easy offense to defend, and it's not like they gave up a ton against that offense. Or it could just be that Jimmy GQ missed some throws and left a lot of yards on the field, and the Green Bay defense was put in a spot where they look a lot better than what they are. So definitely fascinating to go back and look at that. Pitt can't move the ball. If Ben Roethlisberger can't throw the ball, there's no reason to even put him in the game. Like, this is the Carson Wentz situation all over again. I mean, I know you want to give Ben the opportunity to do it, but man, I don't know. I don't know. Like, when you're throwing dinks and dunks, when Chase Claypool has like 5 catches for 27 yards, that's not how you use Chase Claypool. And it's kind of disappointing to see. I really hope Ben figures it out, but I, I don't foresee that happening. So we'll see. Let me see if I can plug this up real quick. I hope this doesn't break anything. All right. That's Pitt Green Bay. Talk about Baltimore. I did not talk about Baltimore Denver. That was actually the other one that I had. So let's do Baltimore Denver now. So that's actually that's one of the biggest games of the week. So we got 3 more left. We got Baltimore Denver, Tampa Bay New England, Vegas, and Chargers. So last 3, and then we'll probably call it a night. Probably make it right to about halftime of the game, and then we'll call it a night. Baltimore Denver is actually one of my favorite games this week, Gabe. So Denver easily faces the toughest game that they've had by far so far. Denver basically got an extra preseason because they faced the Giants, the Jags, and the Jets, which at this point are a whopping 0-9 thus far. And honestly, they're looking like there might not be 5 wins between that entire group all season. Denver going to struggle with a real opponent, Mark. We'll see. There's your 16 yards. Did he rush it? Oh, yeah. Easy. Let's see. Rushing. Trevor Lawrence, 16. It was 16 and a half, so he needs 1 more yard. But, hey, he almost cleared it in the first half. Mark, here's the thing. I don't know. And that's what intrigues me about this game. Teddy's looked solid so far. And honestly, I think he's a good fit for this Broncos offense. They have athletic receivers who can get open pretty consistently, and Teddy can hit them pretty consistently. That's going to be more of a test this week because, one, the Ravens defense is going to blitz Teddy a lot more. They're going to play a lot of man against him. He's not going to have as much time to survey the field. And he's going to have to get the ball out a little quicker. Plus, Hamler is out, is now on IR. So that's gonna be a pain. Lamar plays is my guess. Yeah, I anticipate Lamar playing. I mean, I think they said as much this week that it looks like he's gonna play. I just don't. I wouldn't imagine them going into this game without Lamar. And if he doesn't, it changes everything, obviously. So my assumption is Lamar plays. Let's see. So yeah, so Baltimore is going to bring the blitz. This is going to look a lot more like we talked about this. Baltimore so far this year has been a very week-to-week game plan. Against Patrick Mahomes, they backed off. They played zone. They didn't blitz him as much. Against Vegas the week before that, they were blitz heavy. I mean, they run more cover 0 in one game than some teams will run of cover 0 all season long. I think they ran it 13 times in that particular game. So they're very week to week. I think against the Broncos, you're going to get a lot more of that blitzing. I think that they feel like they're going to be okay with Hamler out. They probably feel like they're going to be able to blitz Teddy, create some chaos for him, because if he has time to sit back there, he's going to be just fine. Like he's able to be able to hit whoever is there. The question becomes is Teddy ready for that? Or is his internal pocket clock still on New York Jets defense time, which you can measure his time to throw with a sundial whenever he's playing a team like the Jets. So beyond that, I think the biggest matchup in this game is really probably the Ravens offense against the Denver defense. The Denver defense is really strong all the way through, all three levels. So it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to play this, because they may have the back end to just get really aggressive up front and make Lamar make some tough reads and some tough throws. The issue is when you do that, can you keep him from running? Because it could potentially open you up to a good amount of Lamar runs the more aggressive you are. Hey, there's Trevor Lawrence over. The other thing I would call out is I think Denver's going to have to figure out what to do with Von Miller. So Von Miller obviously going to rush the passer, really good against the run as well. My thinking is that based on Von Miller being able to rush over that right tackle spot, they're going to be able to get a good amount of pass rush in Lamar's face, right? And it's important to know where the pass rush is coming from, because that can dictate a couple of things. If they're able to rush him in his face, they're also going to be able to blitz him on the backside, because if he's paying attention to what's in front of him, he pays less attention to what's on the back. The other part is what they could do is put the Will backer on the opposite side from Vaughn, and if Vaughn's getting pressure, that Will backer can be there to fill the gap if Lamar wants to squirt through. Or if he decides to try to escape out the backside, you want that Will backer to be able to extend him out. And then that's the other thing we probably don't talk about enough is the cornerback's role in running quarterbacks. When a quarterback like Lamar gets outside of the pocket, it's really important for those cornerbacks who most likely are playing zone, right? Because you don't want to play a ton of man against Lamar, because that means he's going to be able to run. So those quarterbacks, which are likely playing zone, have their eyes on him. They've got to be able to come up and fill on that edge, because those linebackers are going to squeeze, right? So they're going to play to the edge, and then they're going to work and push that guy outside because they want to extend the play. And the more he's running to the edges and to the sidelines, the faster those cornerbacks and the safeties coming down can help out in that, right? And it forces that running quarterback to be more precise with everything that he does. Now, if those cornerbacks come up and they press like they do, Trevor Lawrence rushing touchdown. Damn, I should have bet that. That was, if I were a betting man, that would have been the bet that I took. But definitely hit that. So we'll see how those cornerbacks do. Now, again, Denver plays a good amount of zone. Patrick Surtain probably a better zone guy than a man guy, but very, very good. So when he gets outside, can those cornerbacks fill down? Can the linebackers extend the play, right? Because Lamar's really good at looking like he's going to run to the edge and then going up and cutting back and making people look silly. Like he's terrific at that. So linebackers have to be able to force and leverage Lamar to the outside, get that help for the cornerback, but then the safeties are going to have to fill behind, because when the corner leaves his person or leaves his zone, then they got to fill down. That safety's got to get there to fill in what that is without getting beat over top. So how they do that and how they communicate on the back end as a defense is going to be really, really important. So we'll see how Denver plays this, but I'm absolutely fascinated. They'll definitely play a good amount of zone to limit Lamar's gains with his feet. If Denver wins this game, they're going to force us to admit that they're a top team and someone that we need to count as being in the top echelon of the NFL right now. It's very different matchups for both teams. So how they adjust this week is absolutely going to be key. Baltimore definitely. Here's the thing. We have to look at this as, is Baltimore really as good as what we think they are? I mean, they played with Kansas City for a while, right? They struggled a bit against the Lions. They let the Lions stay in it a lot longer than what they should have last week. But when you go back and watch that game, Baltimore should have had that game multiple times over, and they just never did it. And then, of course, the Ravens lost in week 1 to a really good Vegas team. So how good are they? We don't really know. We could surmise that they're pretty good, but I just want to say that because I know we're going, hey, is Denver for real? Well, it's also is Baltimore for real? Like almost every Ravens play up and down to their opponents. That's what's going to be fascinating. Denver's favored by 1 in this. Grizz, Louisville's finest versus Louisville's finest. Yes, it is. Surtain from Saban defense to Fangio is insane for him. It's not a different perfect fits. Yeah, there's so much going on in this game, and so many different ways that both teams could take it. It's hard to predict exactly what each one wants to do or will do, which makes it really hard for me to pick. Denver's favored by 1 in Denver, so it's basically tells us that Vegas thinks that Baltimore is actually the better team, but the home field advantage is going to make this a win for Denver. Again, Denver played a terrible schedule, but they also put teams away that they should. They don't have Jerry Jeudy. They don't have Hamler. That's probably the biggest thing for me not to be able to just outright pick the Broncos. You know what? I'm gonna leave you guys guessing on this one because I want to do a little more work on this game before we get to Sunday. Because again, this one's gonna be a big one. I think this is gonna be a big game for the AFC. Denver is, leading the West right now, which everybody thought that they would be worst in the West. So actually, I think no, sorry. Raiders are leading, I believe, because I think Raiders have the tiebreaker. Yeah, Raiders have the tiebreaker, then Denver, then the Chargers, then the Chiefs. God, what a brutal division this year. Good luck winning that one. I think the Broncos are a wild card at worst this year, Grizz. The problem with them being a wild card is that means that either the Raiders or Chargers or Chiefs don't make it into the playoffs. And right now, it's hard to imagine that any of those guys don't. And don't forget, you've got the NFC North, which is the Ravens and the Browns. So, and right now, the Bengals look like they don't know what the hell they're doing because they're getting whooped by an Urban Meyer Jags team that has easily looked like the worst team in the NFL so far this season. So, but they're starting on their own 21, 4 minutes left, and they're going to try to they're down 14-0 right now. Please tell me you're not just going to hand this off to Joe Mixon on the first. Oh, it's 2nd and 3. Yeah, okay. Man, this Bengals offensive line is bad. They're bad at pass blocking and run blocking. There are 3 wild cards, remember. I know, that's what I'm saying though. So you're saying that Denver. So if we go back and look, so you're saying that Denver is going to be better. So let's say the Browns win the AFC North. Right now the Bengals lead. They're 2-1. Ravens are 2-1. Browns are 2-1. So let's just say it goes as what we thought. Browns win. That means if Browns win that means we've got the Ravens as a wild card. We've got Chargers, Chiefs as a wild card. So Buffalo probably wins the East, but then you got Miami and New England. Okay, I can give you maybe Denver probably beats one of them out. And then the AFC South doesn't count. Let's just not even bother. Somebody has to win that division, right? Like the Titans have to win that division. The Texans, Colts, and Jags aren't going to be fighting for a wild card spot. So that means you're saying that Denver is better than either the let's assume the Chiefs win the division, right? Assume the Chiefs. That means that the Broncos are better than the Raiders, the Chargers, or the Ravens. So it's close, not out of the question, but we'll see. I've seen Carr have his streaks. No, yeah, that's the problem. I don't really think the Raiders sustain this. Omasari, that's actually the Monday night game is going to be fascinating to me as well. That's going to be between Vegas and the Chargers. Fascinated by that game. I feel like I have a better handle on what the Chargers are because they are what I expected them to be. So we'll see. But that could be a game where we figure out like, are the Raiders for real? I mean, at 3-0, we kind of have to assume they're a really good football team because I think they are. But are they top echelon type of football team? If they go to 4-0 over a Chargers team that just put it on the Chiefs, like, okay, now you got my attention. I mean, they had my attention before, but all right, Baltimore, Denver. Not going to pick this game. Wait till Sunday morning to pick this game. Denver -1. Interested to see how that line moves, if at all. Teddy doesn't care anymore. Doesn't care about my. He's leaving. Oh, he's leaving it all on the field every week now. I was like, what do you mean he doesn't care? Yeah. Teddy feels comfortable. Like he feels like he's in an offense that makes sense to him. And here's the thing. Again, with receivers running open all over the place, all he has to do is hit him. And he can do that. He's a good enough NFL quarterback to be able to do that. Is he the type of guy that you're going to be threatened by every week? Absolutely not. Like he's not going to scare anybody, but he's good enough to get it done. Wild Trevor throw, I missed it. I'm on ads right now for some reason. All right. Just saw the Bengals do it, and I've seen the other teams too. But what is the significance of going empty and having the running back just stand there on his route? Stand there. I missed it. Stand there on like in the backfield, or like as a swing out to the right, or like go up the middle and then just turn around and stand there. I missed that. I can't rewind this. Nah, I can't rewind this version. Sorry. Once I'm actually able, run a bubble, I think he means he's a lookout. So there's a couple calls that you can make on a running back in the backfield, right? So the running back can be an extra blocker if he sees a blitzer coming. So his primary read is everybody blocked? Is there any blitzers coming? If not, then he can run out. And linebackers will do the same thing, right? They'll say, hey, is the running back going out into a route? If so, I'll follow him. If not, I'm coming for the quarterback. And so depending on how those two things are called could end up being a very different situation as to how that play turns out. But if he just stands there next to the quarterback, then that means he's looking for somebody to block, and he's a sixth offensive lineman. And the reason for that is typically they're going to run empty, but they're going to run deeper routes down the field, and they need that little bit of extra time to let those routes develop. And so that, or they're expecting a blitz. So, and either one of those calls can be right, because if he stands back there and nobody blitzes, then it's just another guy that's not in a route, and now all of a sudden you've got 4 guys out in routes and you've got 7 guys that's covering them, which makes it really hard on an offense. So I'd have to go back and look at the exact play and see what you're talking about. But yeah, definitely a few different ways that could go. I mean, when he's lined up at boundary receiver and when the ball is snapped, he just stands there. It usually means he's either a decoy, there is an outlet as like a potential screen, or he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Like those are the only 3 things that it really can be. Like he could have just blanked on the play and not known what he was supposed to be doing. And it can be that if he's out on the boundary and he doesn't move, then it means that he's just taking up an extra guy and helping get a one-on-one, probably more on the interior. Oh, I see. LaVisca shows up. Oh, wow. Okay. Man, oh man. Jags are about to go up. Wow. How did the Bengals turn it over? Like what happened? Oh, that sucks. All right. We'll do Tampa Bay, New England. So again, 3 and out. Okay. Tampa Bay, New England. New England favored by 6.5, or I'm sorry, New England down by 6.5. So Tampa Bay favored by 6.5 in New England. It's a pretty big line in New England. I wonder when the last time New England was a dog by that much at home. Probably not that often. Maybe against Kansas City if they played at home in the last couple of years. Again, I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but Brady returns to New England where he spent 20 years. Media is definitely hammering the story to death. Like I get it. Again, I think it's something that like coming in here and doing this stream, like I've realized you have to find things to talk about. And for these guys that these reporters that follow these teams all day, every day, and they have to have some sort of report or multiple reports a day and talk about different things, it's hard to come up with content. Like here, I get to go through all the games. This pretty much kind of outlines it. But I always want to do like one extra thing every week where I can be like, hey, let's talk about rookie quarterbacks. Let's talk about what's going on and in scheme changes that I'm seeing every week. Like we could talk about those different things because it's beyond just that. These beat reporters, they have nothing to talk about. So we'll see. So yeah, so I feel for them. I feel for those guys. So of course they're going to hammer it to death because it's actually a good story that people actually care about. So it's going to be, you're just going to have to hear about it all day, every day, all the way up until Sunday Night Football. I actually wish it was one of the 1:00 games so we didn't have to listen to it so much, but there's an obvious reason that they put it as Sunday Night Football. So outside of that, the Bucks are clearly the all-around better team here. Like they literally are better at every position except maybe cornerback and safety is the only place where I would question that they potentially have an advantage. That the Patriots potentially have an advantage. So from an overall perspective, it feels like an easy Tampa Bay win. The issue is that Belichick is the best coach ever at taking what the other team wants to do and taking that away from him. And he knows Brady as a player better than anyone on the planet. Now, does that factor into this game? And does he have enough talent at certain positions to be able to get it done? So, like if I'm Belichick and I'm looking at this game and the Bucks as a team, I'm saying, you guys love to go deep. You love the big play. And if you can't beat me deep, you aren't going to score a ton on me. And the Pats are historically good in the red zone and with the red zone defense, no matter what the talent level is on that side of the ball. So New England is usually a pure man team, but they've been running a little bit more zone this year. And it's interesting because I feel like that's going to be important for this game. No one thinks that the Patriots can cover this Bucks offense man to man. And so they probably run a bit more zone. And they may even go into some too high. Like they like to run a lot of single high, cover 3 here and there. As they go, fumble at the end zone. Oh, he's definitely down. I mean, I have zero confidence in the refs to get this right. But he's 1,000% down short of the goal line. So, okay, they did get it right. Bucks have been sloppy. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about why that is. Mac Jones is the new Tom Brady. Watch him process information. He's gonna have to progress a lot for sure. Bill just gonna run the Kellen Moore playbook on offense. He doesn't have the players to run the playbook to run the Kellen Moore playbook, Grizz. Like they're not nearly that good. And what Kellen Moore is doing is going to be tough for anybody to replicate. Just even from a game plan, like a play calling perspective. If the Patriots win and Mac Jones has a great game, Twitter will break. It ain't gonna happen. I don't foresee it happening. So yeah. So Patriots run a good amount of single high safety and man. That's what they prefer to run. They've been running a good amount of cover 3. They've been running a good amount of cover 3 this year, probably more than they would like to, which tells me they're not very comfortable with their cornerbacks. So I could even with their wanting to protect the back end of that defense and not allow for the big plays, I could see them going into a good amount of too high for this game. And I've said this in pretty much every game so far again for the Bucks. I keep waiting for the game where a team just backs completely off the Bucks and plays cover 2 and says, I'm not going to let you have anything deep. I'm not going to let you have the big play. And here, run the ball. Like if you want to run the ball against me and you want to let Ronald Jones and Lenny Fournette get 2 yards a carry, have at it. I bet you won't. And I feel like the thing is, I feel like Bill Belichick could potentially be the type of guy to do that. Like he knows that Brady's going to want to throw it up and put a ton of points on the board. But it's one thing to Belichick wanting to take the team's best play or best option away from them is one thing, but like it's he can go into a game and say, what does Jacoby Brissett do that is bad? What does he do that's good? And how do I take away the good and funnel this game into him doing lots of the bad stuff? Like, I want to make him do the thing that he's not good at, and let's take away the one thing that he is good at. And that's one thing to try to do it against Jacoby Brissett. It's a totally different thing to do it against a Tom Brady. Because when you look at him and go, what can he not do well, and what can I take advantage of? Well, there's not really a ton of weaknesses there. Brady doesn't have a ton of weaknesses. Like, there's not a major like critical downfall. Like, it's just not there. And you could say, hey, it's a little bit like getting pressure in the middle. Like, it disrupts him because he can't move that well, and it's especially bad now because he's old. Problem is, it's great, but okay, that's fantastic. But now you've got to get through Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet to do that, and you've shown that you can't really rush the passer, especially up the middle. So I'm that's another thing. I'm curious about the New England blitz packages. Like, I feel like they're going to have to manufacture pressure in some way, shape, or form, or Brady's going to be able to sit back and pick them apart all day. So, and if we flip that around, by the way, so I said this earlier. I want to tweet this out before I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to join this conversation. Before we get into it, because I want to make sure the most amount of people hear this. Let's go through a couple comments while we're here. What's the over under on running plays for New England? 40. Like, I feel like it's 40. Like, it really should be. Where we go. I don't know if you guys can talk and type at the same time, but I can't. I'm not that good at it. Probably good to give you guys an ears break anyways. Yo, be eaten. Welcome in, brother. Mark 18 also gets to lose and contain Brady if they give up 200. Yeah, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you're Bill Belichick on defense and the Bucks rush for 100 yards, that's a win. And Belichick's the type of guy that doesn't give a damn about the stats, right? Like, he's like, so what? You rush for 100 yards. Thank you. You didn't throw for 400. We traded 100 rushing yards for 300 passing yards. Thank you. We appreciate that. This needs to be the game Rojo goes for 20 carries and 40 yards. I mean, the thing is, the Bucks have realized that if Rojo's rushing for 2 yards a carry, they probably don't need to run him so much. They have gotten out of that a little bit. They do still go to the run game too much when it's not working. They got to be sure that it's not working before they back off of it. Isn't that what Belichick does versus the Bills in the Super Bowl? Did versus the Bills in the Super Bowl against the Bills? You mean the Rams? Yeah, I think for me it's Belichick's going to take away the pass game. He's going to back off. He's not going to let the Bucks have the big play. I do think the Pats will run versus Tampa Bay. I mean, yes, 100%. They may run 35 or 40 times even if it's not working. Oh, Bills when he was DC in New York. Got it. I don't think I don't. Here's the thing. I couldn't tell you. I'm not old enough to tell you exactly how he game planned that game. I just barely remember his game against the Rams. So we'll see. All right. So the thing about the Bucks that nobody is talking about, right? So everybody's talking about how bad the Bucks secondary has been. And let's say this, who knows if Richard Sherman plays, but I don't think it's going to make a huge difference either way in this game. But what we do need to talk about is how little pressure the Bucs are getting up front. We can talk about the secondary all we want, but it doesn't really matter. The secondary isn't that much worse than what it was last year. And these are mostly the same guys with, now you've got a couple injuries. But here's the thing. Sean Murphy-Bunting wasn't playing real well last year. He didn't play terrific. And he wasn't playing real well this year before he got hurt either. So, yes, they're a little bit banged up in secondary. But at the same time, it's not like they were amazing last year. The difference is the Bucs have zero pressure. Like, it's bad. And here's the other thing. Todd Bowles loves to blitz. We know that. But here's the thing. The Bucs have blitzed a total of 61 times. The next closest team, that's the most in the NFL. Next closest team, the Dolphins at 49, and then it's the Rams at 43. That's a massive gap. They blitz a shit ton. The problem is that 40.4 blitz percentage, it's number one in the NFL, but they're still not getting pressure. So what do they have to show for all that blitzing? Bucs have generated 27 pressures so far for a pressure rate of 17.9%. That's 29th in the NFL. So they're fourth worst in pressure rate. Only the Texans, Niners, and Colts are worse. And they only have 3 QB sacks, which is worst in the NFL. And we've talked about it on previous shows, and our NFC, and especially in our NFC South preview show. The Bucs cornerbacks are decent but young. They weren't a group of shutdown corners by any means last year, and now they're injured and young, and they're showing some glaring holes. Why did they look so good last year? Well, because the Bucs got pressure on 27.5% of dropbacks. It's third best in the NFL, and they were tied for fourth in sacks. They were actually getting to the quarterback last year, and then all of a sudden, those cornerbacks look like they're playing well. Pressure protect. We've talked about this in every show. Pressure protects a secondary. And right now, they just can't get it. They have no protection for that secondary up front. And it doesn't matter who's in there. JPP played 2 out of 3 games. It's not that big of a deal that he wasn't out. It's not like he was getting pressure either. Like, you could say that, yeah, it's JPP being out hurts. But hey, guess what? They've got Vita Vea in there. Like, there's other guys that can rush the passer. Tryon Shoyinka, solid player, huge, aggressive guy looks like he's going to be able to play, still can't get to the cornerback. And they had no pressure against Stafford last week, and he ate them up because of it. Credit to that Rams offensive line, but dude, when Stafford can lay it up to Deshaun Jackson 3 or 4 times, that's bad news, man. And that's bad news for your secondary, because if the secondary has to try to defend Deshaun Jackson over top, they are not good enough to do that. And if Stafford's able to just sit back there with 3 or 4 seconds in the pocket and let Djax get that 9 route on him, so hard. There's no way that they're going to be able to protect that. So we can talk about the secondary all you want. And you can say, hey, like, they're young, they're not very good, they're not getting it done. The problem isn't the secondary. They're just fine. Like, the secondary is good enough. This is the same secondary that they had last year. They're not playing that different of a defense from what they played last year, but they're not getting pressure up front. And until they do, nothing's going to change. So we can talk about that. We can talk about the secondary. While everybody else is going to be watching the secondary and seeing if they can handle New England's vaunted passing offense, which it's not, right? I'm interested to see if the big boys can get it done this week against the New England offensive line that everyone else seems to be really, really high on. But at this point, they seem to be really high on. Now everybody's like, okay, they're not that good. I never really thought that they were that good. And at this point, they've looked average at best. So here's the thing. This may be the week that you potentially see Mac Jones open it up and take some shots downfield, because that's how you beat this Bucs defense. Because if you can block them up front, then you're able to take shots on that secondary. And the other thing is the Bucs like to play a lot of off man, a lot of zone, and they don't like to press a ton. They will mix up some coverages, right? So every once in a while they'll do zone on one side, man on another, or they'll do zone and then they'll match up man in the middle. And so they'll mix up those coverages, which is probably going to be hard for Mac Jones to decipher at times. But at the same time, they need more pressure inside, outside. And if you can't get pressure rushing 5, rushing 6, all you're doing is putting your defense out to dry. Your secondary is going to be out to dry. So the Bucks have to figure it out, man. Like they've got to figure out that pass rush. And Bulls can scheme up some wicked blitzes, but none of those are getting home. And it's hard to say if I don't think that they're Mama Noodles. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Bulls can scheme it up. Don't get me wrong, but the thing is I'm not sure that no matter what he schemed this year, it just hasn't gotten there. You have 3 sacks from a team that blitzes 40% of the time. Like what? How? The thing is again, it goes back to the Cowboys game. The Cowboys, so in week 1, the Cowboys said, as long as we can block you, we can throw on you. And they did, and they threw the daylights out of it. Now the question is can other teams do that and be able to get away with it? And the thing is bad teams can't, good teams can, which is bad news for the Bucks because you got to beat good teams on the way to the Super Bowl. So they're going to have to figure it out. Now, do we think that it lasts all season? Probably not. Bowles is a smart guy. He's going to be able to mix it up, create some scrapes, some twists, some in-tackle games that's eventually going to get some guys free. But right now, they're just not getting it done. And until they get that pass rush going, this defense is going to be brutal. I don't think that New England is able to get it done this week and be able to block them. I don't think that they have the weapons to be able to test this defense. And the other thing is their 2 biggest weapons are probably the 2 tight ends. Jonnu Smith has not played well. Hunter Henry's probably has been the better of the 2, or more consistent in the 2, I guess you could say. And I don't think that they pose very much of a threat considering the Bucks can actually match up against those tight ends because of David and White. So we'll see. I'm more interested in how Belichick schemes up against Brady and if they actually invite the run. I think they do. I think this is the week where you see the Patriots basically line up 3 down linemen and then back off their linebackers and say, sure, go ahead, run for 2 or 3 yards. Like that's a better play for the Patriots than for the Bucks. So they're going to I really think they're going to let the Bucks run. So New England is plus 6.5 in New England. I'll make my pick on Sunday for that particular game, but I just don't think New England's got the. I love Bill Belichick. I think I think he can scheme it with as the best coach in NFL history. Does he have a special one in the tank to stop a Tom Brady offense that has what looks like Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Gronk, who may or may not play, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate? I shouldn't really include Lenny and Rojo, but I will. Scotty Miller's out on IR with turf toe. So I don't know, man. I just don't know that Belichick's got the horses in the stable to go run this race with the Bucks. So let's see. Comments, Gabe. I just remember the Bill and Bill documentary. I don't know what you're talking about. My lord, the coaching the last 5 minutes is breaking my brain. Oh, in the game, I haven't been able to watch it. JPP is obviously the guy that was overlooked importance-wise. I think he's important. I think his presence and his intelligence is important. Sets the edge very, very well. But I don't know that it's that big of a drop off between him and Tryon. JPP out. Shaq MIA. Yeah, that's the Shaq MIA is what's concerning. Now, I will say that Shaq before was in when Vita Vea went out, Shaq disappeared. When Vea was hurt, Shaq was nothing. So Shaq's has ended up getting a few decent linemen every week, and I think that's probably causing most of what we're seeing against Shaq. I think I like Shaq a lot. Don't get me wrong. But if we're talking about Shaq in the top echelon of pass rushers, I get it. Put up double digit sacks. Fantastic. I still, you can tell me that all day. I still don't think it's great. He's faced, he had a decent game against Atlanta. Again, bad. Couldn't get past Whitworth. Couldn't get past Smith. He plays good. He plays good tackles. He gets beat. He's not consistent. So love it, but he was jogging. I assume you're talking about Djax Grizz. He was jogging. He looked like he looked like he was just he looked like he was playing with kids out there, man. Like he was just running right past him and waiting for his backyard quarterback just to throw the ball up to him so that he could outrun them all. So what 35-year-old all-pro D end is coming out of retirement? Yeah. No, I don't think they're looking to upgrade at the position. Gerald McCoy next year. Funny Grizz. I don't think they're looking to upgrade the position. I think they feel fine with what they've got. I just don't think that they've been able to get the type of pressure that they wanted with the guys that they think can do it. And I'm interested to see what tricks Bowles has in the bag. Teller, fresh legs, Johnson. He's looked pretty good in his few snaps this year. I think that's the difference for me. If the Bucks have their full complement, I can't imagine many teams stopping them. Complement of receivers, I can't imagine many teams stopping them. Yeah, I just with all those weapons, I'm not really sure that the thing stopping the Bucks is their offensive play calling right now, because stop running the freaking football whenever you're able to throw for 20 yards at a time on a team. Like, what are we doing? I don't care that you have Rojo and you want to prove yourself right that he's a decent player, and like put Lenny Fournette in there. He can catch, he can pass block. It's all you need. All you need. And Gio, while he ended up hurt, like he hasn't been as big of an impact. And the funny thing is Lenny's looked damn good in the pass game, both running and catching, except for that weird screen that he dropped and ended up as an interception for the Bucks against the Cowboys. So yeah. Oh, Bill 30 for 30. Belichick was like, if the Bills run for 100 yards, we win the game. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's exactly what he's probably saying in this one. If they run for 100 yards, we have a shot to win this. You think Arians tries to throw some screens and try to adjust to a potential invite the run strategy? Yeah. So, when I think to invite the run, the Pats are going to need to play off, right? They're going to need to show soft fronts and then probably do some late rotations either right before the snap or at the snap or even after the snap. They're going to do some late rotations to fill those gaps because they play a very disciplined defense where assignment and gap coverage is very, very important. So they're not going to try to get away from that, because they don't want the runs to go for 7-8 yards, because if they're letting 7-8 yard runs happen all over the field, then they're going to get beat anyways. So how Arians plays into that, I don't think screens are going to be particularly useful. Screens don't work as well against man as they do against zone, because you're going to have that one guy that could potentially fight through to be able to get to the running back whenever you're throwing those screens, or wide receiver or tight end or whoever you're throwing it to. I don't see anything Arians can do. Like, if they're going, hey, we're going to invite the run, the answer is how do you then run shorter routes into that soft coverage to make it work? Right. So if you only have 3 down linemen and everybody's playing a little bit further back, if you have 4 down linemen and the linebackers are playing a little bit off, or you're playing too high, now all of a sudden you're trying to attack those short to intermediate areas under that defense to be able to get 10, 12 yards in the pass game. So they're going to have to stop the run on first. Patriots will have to stop the run on first down. That's probably key number 1 for them, because the Bucks they're going to invite it, and then the Bucks are probably going to take it whenever it's there. And then from there, they're going to have to play some really good third down defense. And and that's the thing. Once you get to third down, then you sit at the sticks, right? Then Brady's going to try to take a shot every once in a while on third down. But hey, you know what? You'll take that one shot versus them taking shots on 3 downs, right? Like play off until it's 3rd down and then sit your ass at the sticks and then tackle and defend. And they're a very disciplined defense, and they could potentially do that. This isn't a terrible defense, but they're not particularly talented either. I do think that, we've talked about it. Udon and Uche are fairly solid up front. The tough part about this for the Patriots is their cornerbacks aren't very good. And they've been trying to scheme up some blitzes and some pressures to be able to figure out, like, how do we protect this back end? And they've sold out for the blitz a little more than they probably would like to, simply because they know that they need to defend the back end. And to do that, they're going to have to get pressure, and they're going to have to manufacture pressure and get it in unique ways, which haven't done a terrific job of, but they've done good enough. So, all right. So that is Tampa Bay, New England. And then finally, what we can talk about is Vegas and Chargers. And let's take a peek in on the game that we still have up back here. Oops. We're probably through halftime at this point. It's 10 o'clock. It better be through halftime. Yeah, 14-0 still. All right, we'll see. We'll see what the Bengals can do. All right, last game of the night, and then we'll probably call it a night. Vegas Chargers. Fantastic game. Super interesting matchup for Monday night. How lucky are we getting with some of these primetime games, man? So far, the Thursday night games, even though they may not be the most interesting teams, have been exciting. They've been close. They've been good games. Maybe not good games, but they've been at least fun games because the games are close. And then with the Raiders and Chargers, these are both really good teams, so I'm fascinated by it. You got to say that both teams are outperforming most people's expectations at this point. Oh my God. Little wide receiver dump off. Touchdown. Bengals. Bengals are going to come back and win this, aren't they? All right. Both teams outperforming most people's expectations. Raiders are 3-0. Chargers are 2-1. Coming off a win against the Chiefs. Their only loss was against a Cowboys team that we talked about, that everyone knows the Cowboys are really good now. And you could argue that without an illegal motion penalty or illegal shift, they would have won that game against the Cowboys and probably should be 3-0. So this is a really good game. Basically, two of the best teams in the AFC. These teams look like they could go late in the playoffs. Both look phenomenal. Like we've talked about it. Some of these 3-0 teams are 3-0 teams because of who they've played, and some of them are 3-0 teams because they've earned it and they deserve it. Raiders are a 3-0 team because they've earned it and deserved it. Chargers are 2-1. They've earned it, and they've played some tough games in the middle. So Raiders escaped disaster last week against the vaunted Jacoby Brissett and Miami Dolphins. And there was a real spot last week where they probably should have lost that game in OT. Like, Jacoby Brissett willed the Miami Dolphins into OT and then almost willed them to a win in OT. So the Raiders showed a little bit of a gap in the armor there. The Raiders defense has been solid so far because of the pressure up front for Max Cosby and Ngakoue. Ngakoue's been productive. And then we got to call out Casey Hayward has looked like a number one corner again. I think that's a big piece of this defense. The offense thrives off of Carr carrying that team on his right shoulder. They missed Josh Jacobs last week. He likely makes a return this week, which is going to be huge because the Chargers can definitely be run on. The Chiefs had a good amount of run game going last week. CEH looked like a really good player again against this Chargers team. And maybe that's, again, potentially by design, because if the Chargers are letting the Chiefs run on them, then it means Patrick Mahomes isn't throwing on them. So it'll be interesting to watch. And the thing is Gruden's going to run the ball whenever he has the opportunity. So he's not scared to run it, and he'll dial up the pass play to Carr, but if he can run the ball, he probably prefers to do that. Chargers pass rush has been solid this year. They've been leaky in the run game. Darren Waller likely sees a ton of Derwin James in this game. That feels like the most obvious matchup to me. They could potentially move Derwin James around a little bit, but Waller's their main go-to. and the biggest freak of an athlete, though I still think Edwards and Ruggs are have looked impressive so far. But I don't see how Derwin James doesn't see, like how Waller doesn't see Derwin James most of this game. On offense, the Chargers are a throwing team that may run the ball at times. Herbert, if Herbert wins, he may end up putting himself in the MVP conversation with this game. And I think he has some of the best weapons in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Jared Cook has been especially effective in the red zone. You guys know from the last few shows, I think the Chargers are a damn good football team all around. They may need to figure out how to shore up that right tackle position at some point. Storm Norton isn't getting it done at this point. But I think the Raiders are beginning to creep into that area where they're a touch overrated as well. So that doesn't necessarily impact the outcome of this game. But it is something to mention, as I think the Chargers are favored by 3, and I'm leaning for the Chargers to win. I'll be interested to see kind of how the Chargers play this on offense, because do they want to just leave it up to Gruden and Derek Carr and think that they're going to make mistakes? Because Carr's a streaky quarterback. So if he gets in there and he starts throwing the ball around and he's making a few bad throws, then maybe you want Derek Carr to throw it. And if not, if he's hitting everything that he can hit, then do you want Josh Jacobs running it? So interested to see how the Chargers play it on offense and on defense. I do think that they're the better overall team. And I do think that there's a little bit of a touch of being overrated for the Raiders. So I'm probably going to take Chargers to win this game, but I think it's going to be close. I don't know if I could take that full 3 points. So we'll see if that line moves up and away or closer by then. And I don't have the odds up now to be able to see what it looks like tonight, because these odds are as of noon today. So appreciate it. Kurt reply, appreciate it. Appreciate the follow. Welcome in. Yeah, so I'm gonna take the Chargers. All right, so that's all of the games on the schedule so far. Some really fascinating games, some really good games, some terrific matchups. There's even a couple of bad teams that are playing. Like that Atlanta Washington game is fun for me because I don't really know who's better. I'm interested to see Jacoby Brissett. He played well last week. I thought he played decent and in fill-in duty against the Bills, even though that game looked a lot worse than what it probably was. Jameis probably has a better week this week against the Giants. KC Philly is fascinating. Arizona Rams, that's definitely a game I'm going to keep my eye on. And then, of course, Brady goes back to New England. So those are our week 4 previews for the week. Appreciate everybody coming in, hanging around. Really, it's fun. It's fun when you guys all get involved. Whenever we get some people in here talking football. As you can tell, if I can talk football for 3 hours and barely take a breath, it's something I love to do. So we basically went full bore for 3 hours here and didn't really have a whole lot of downtime in the whole show. So appreciate all of you guys staying in. DJ Shark and AJ Khan out for the Jaguars. Bengals might get out of here with a W. I thought the Bengals were going to get out of there with a W anyways. I think the Bengals on defense are a better coach team than the Jags. There's probably a block in the back on that return. Nope, they missed the flag. Be Eaton, thank you for the stream and combo. Have a good night. Appreciate you coming in, Be Eaton. Always good to see you in here, man. Thanks for all the questions and commentary as well. So we'll probably jump out of here. Maybe we'll see what this drive. I'll tell you what. Let's actually do a little bit of a side cast here. We'll see what this drive ends up being for the Bengals, and then we'll call it a night. Because I do want to watch a little bit of this game with you guys, talk about what I see is going on or potentially what could be happening. Hopefully they'll go empty on one of these plays where we can determine like where I could potentially call something out. Maybe you guys can rewind, go back and look at it. But yeah, that's awesome. Anybody else that joined potentially late, if you want to know anything about any of the games that we talked to, happy to recap any particular game for you in a hurry. Again, we just spent 3 hours talking about 16 games, so I don't know if I can like I'm gonna have to cut this down. If guy like Grizz, Be Eaten, crossover, Gabe, like all of you guys that have been here multiple times. First of all, I truly appreciate you guys continuing to show up. This is so much fun whenever you guys are here. Um, it's definitely fun. You guys definitely know what you're talking about. Love the conversation. Um, but yeah, like when we start getting more and more people, when there are more and more people here, like we're either gonna have to start ignoring some comments or moving along or trimming these games down. So we'll see. Stamina, dude, stamina for 3 hours. Dude, I feel bad, Grizz, because I keep telling my wife's like, oh, so how long are you gonna stream? Oh, I'll be done by 9 o'clock. Here it is, 10:10, and we're still going. I'm like, I got another drive in me. So yeah, hopefully Bengals can keep the gas on. I mean, did you put money on the game? What did we say? What was it? 7.5? Okay, it was 7.5. We picked Bengals to cover 7.5. And of course it starts out 14-0. That doesn't mean that the Bengals still can't cover. Might have to go to two different streams, half on one, half on the other. Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like on the YouTube, I gotta figure out how to edit a video, man. Like I'm gonna cut these way down. I stay away from times with my wife. It's probably a good idea. I think at this point she knows. Like if I say it's kind of like, oh, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Like your wife probably knows I'll be there in 10, 15, something like that. Like I'm on my way means I'm just getting out of the shower and haven't left the house yet. So yeah, later exactly. So that's one of those things. I'm gonna have to figure out like I'm trying to use stream marker so like from this side like I can put stream markers in my stream to be able to mark things because I'm gonna need to go back and like edit these and then I just posted a couple of the old streams on YouTube and now I need to go back and like put like chapters or bookmarks or whatever the hell they're called just to be able to for people to not have to listen through a 3 hour stream so maybe they can go straight to their game and listen to a 10-minute recap of it. So that or I need to hire a YouTube editor, but they're gonna if I'm doing 3 hour videos, they're gonna charge me an arm and a leg for it, especially whenever I can't even monetize it at this point. Crossover, when we get to the point where there are too many comments and my comments don't get read, I'll shed tears of joy. You and me both, brother. That'll be fun. Joe Mixon, toss right. The Bengals are on a good amount of power. I love that the Bengals are in power because it fits Joe Mixon's game so much better. Oh, we just need that dude in the face. It fits Joe Mixon's game so much better because he gets north and south so well. You create a highlight from Twitch, download it, and then re-upload on YouTube. Yeah, those are only going to be like small clips, and then I would end up like with 20 clips a week, right? Like so 16 games. 16 games every single week and then uploading them to YouTube. I mean, I could do it. It'd just be a lot. I think it would be easier for me to upload like a full stream with chapters in it and then let people skip around. And I do want to take some of those streams and cut out like talking about like the rookie QBs. Like I'd love to be able to cut that out. Problem is like once this stream ends, taking it out and then editing it all night before I go to bed would probably take 2 or 3 hours. And then I still have a regular job during the day I got to do. So Burrow's got all day to throw. Oh, that was pretty. I don't necessarily like that Burrow put so much air on that ball, but he still seemed confident in that throw. I don't know where you guys are at. The play just ended its first attempt, flag, 9:58 left in the third. I need to check. Did anybody actually go and bet the 16.5? All right, I'm trying to catch up on Twitter and see if there's anything. I never Grizz. You never bet. I don't either. I'm technically in Florida, so I'm not allowed to. But I mean, there are always ways around it, right? Like five dimes is like offshore, so you can still bet that. Um, I started betting a little bit. The thing is I'm way better whenever I'm not whenever I don't have money in. Ooh, Bengals went heavy here. Run off the left side. Yeah. Nope. Play action. Screen. Oh, Mixon. Um, I'm much better at calling games whenever I don't have money on the line. For whatever reason, whenever I put money on the line, my wife laughs at me because she's like, "Oh, you're picking games and you're putting money on it. Okay, so how much are you gonna lose?" Otherwise, I'm much better. Like I have, I have 12 and 4 weeks like last week whenever I'm not betting. But whenever I put my money on it for whatever reason, brain goes out the window and I end up picking the wrong side for whatever reason. Bengals and empty again. Okay, so with that, again, you can see that when the Bengals are in empty, the Jags end up with only four down linemen, and then everybody else is off the ball and nobody looks like they're coming. So that's a protection in the form of itself because you know that for the most part, you've got five blocking four, and that's always a good thing for, not always, but for the most part, it's a good thing for the offense. And now Burrow knows that he doesn't have any pressure coming, so he's going to have a little bit of time to sit in and try to find those intermediate routes. I just feel like they're not running a ton of motion. Watch, they're probably going to run motion here. Nope, timeout. Rut row. Bengals timeout. Man, timeouts in the second half are so valuable, especially in close games. You cannot call in the second half if it's not in a good spot. Like you better need to call that timeout if it's not for time saving purposes in the fourth quarter. Like there are times whenever I would rather go from 3rd and 2 to 3rd and 7 and not take a timeout simply because it's not terrible. Chasing off the edge does not inspire fear. There's nothing that inspires fear. Like I'm thoroughly impressed that this game is as close as it is. And it looks like the Jaguars did what we said, right? Like hammer the ball with Robinson, run some play action, some zone read with Trevor Lawrence, and don't ask him to just carry the team all by himself. Man, Mixon's running for like 8 yards a carry whenever they get him off the edge. Whenever they get the Jaguars moving sideways, he's getting 7, 8 yards every single time. I'm impressed that the Bengals are going with heavy sets though. They're not afraid to call in an extra lineman, run in two tight ends or a fullback and run it. They're perfectly happy with having those heavy sets in there. Here we go. See? Apparently they've just decided they're just going to run the shit out of the ball. Yep. They're going U personnel and then just running it. And the Jags can't stop them. And notice again, they're starting to get the Jags moving to the side, and when they get them moving laterally, Jags aren't able to keep up. Then you get one guy in the hole that Mixon's got to beat. Tight end couldn't shield him out. If the tight end shields him out, he's got a one-on-one with a safety instead of a linebacker. How do players know when to sub in and out of the game? Hand signals. Hand signals, and so there's usually one guy. So there's usually one guy on the sideline that is giving hand signals as to what the personnel package is, and he typically has on a different shirt. So if all the coaches on the Bengals sideline are wearing black, then there'll be one guy or one person with a blue shirt on or a bright green or something random, and that's your personnel person, and you know to find that person, and then he'll give the signal. And it may be you personnel, like if it's you, sometimes they'll just do you. It depends on what the calls are, right? Like, and by the way, there are scouts that go to these games. So why send a scout to a game, right? Like you could just pre-scout a team by watching their film. Well, there's a scout that is I'm trying to find the Jags personnel guy, but I don't see him. So there are scouts that go and they'll sit in the booth and they'll watch teams live and they'll see who that guy is and what his hand signals are. And that's what, so when the offense goes to makes a call or whatever, um, makes a call or whatever and signals in what that personnel is, there's a guy that does that for the defense as well and says, "Hey, they're going U personnel," which U personnel, sorry, is a West Coast term for three tight ends. So one running back, one wide receiver. That's U personnel. Bengals are running the daylights out of it right now. Um, got him going laterally, cuts up. Mixon doesn't quite get there, but that's good. But yeah, so there's a guy that scouts that. So defensive guy will, or a scout will, they call him, can't even think of the term of them now. But basically an advanced scout that goes and they'll scout this team 3 4 weeks ahead of time and they'll know all the hand signals. And so offenses may change those hand signals from game to game or in certain games, but for the most part, it's all pretty much the same across the league. They'll signal in you personnel, guy on the headset with the pair of binoculars looking at that guy is going you personnel, and then that's the way the defense knows, hey, here's what personnel they're bringing in, here's what personnel we need to switch to. And then you can also watch kind of who's running on and off the field. But whenever there's like three guys running off and three guys running on, it's hard to know who they are, especially with the number changes, which is another big deal. And so by watching that one guy and calling that guy out, you know what they're bringing on or what they're running off, and so that's how defenses respond and react. Let's go back. Gabe, will New York Jets and Atlanta be the worst London game yet? Oh my God, that's who's playing in London. I mean, at least America's not losing a good game for it. Is that one on at 9 a.m.? I may have to like side stream that game while we're. I love that Burrow ran this sneak no matter what, but holy cow, Jags just left the wide receiver wide open. Um, yeah, America's not losing a bad game for that one. Nothing worse than that Jameis game. Man, you know, can we not talk about that Jameis game? I like Jets and Atlanta will. I mean, they'll be happy to have that game, sure, but hey, you know what though? Those two teams both being bad may end up making it look like a good game, like that they're actually good. Crossover, I always wondered that because I know only the QB has the radio, and I've never played football, so I never knew how players just knew when to come out. Yep. Yeah, so I mean, like you'll see guys tap their helmets whenever they're gassed and they'll want to come out, but for the most part, like they're signaling and calling on the sidelines what the personnel packages are and stuff like that. So on Tate on the QB sneak, dude. Sometimes they'll do that. I don't think the Jags planned on that. I just don't think they knew what the hell they were doing. Yeah, it's next week, not this week, or the center. Yeah, I don't know how you're on the goal line and don't have a guy on the center or two guys on the center on each of the center shoulders. Players also stand by the coaches ready to come on. Yeah, because they're calling that stuff out on the sideline very very quickly. All right. All right, so with that, it's tie game. I'm gonna go chill with the wife, watch the end of the game. I appreciate all of you guys hanging in there with me tonight. Another fun stream. Tonight was a blast, man. Like I'm loving the commentary. I'm loving all your guys' input and stuff to say. Like it's been an absolute blast. It's funny because the days that I stream, I'm like, oh, it feels like a lot. But then as soon as I get into the stream, I'm like, all right, let's go. Like adrenaline starts flowing and we're good to go. So I appreciate all of you guys coming in, hanging out. Hopefully you know, yeah, you liked what you saw, you enjoyed it. As always, I am always open to feedback because this is my first time doing it. I just counted the other day. I think we've had 12 streams all in total. But I really appreciate you guys hanging in. I can't say that enough. And participating. It's been an absolute blast so far. And I know that you guys are taking a good amount of time out of your stuff. So I am going to skip out of here. Thank you guys so much. Be eaten. Have a good night, man. Really appreciate it. You guys enjoy the rest of the game. Tomorrow actually starts the October. So tomorrow's October, which means tomorrow we are officially in the Twitch Sports Accelerator program, which means all of the ads have to be run and all that good stuff. I did run them, like I haven't been running them. I'm gonna have to do a better job. Austin, where's Austin? I haven't seen Austin. Austin always does a good job of reminding me to do those. I need to figure out if I can actually like plan to have those done. But appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for hanging in there. Enjoy. Oh, they called it back. Enjoy the rest of the night. Let's see if they actually cover the wide receivers on this. What in the world? They're all signaling 2 to each other for some reason. Sorry, I'm going to watch this last play with you, and then we're going to get it. Crossover, have a good night, man. Appreciate you so much. They're going to sneak this again, aren't they? 3rd and goal. Why wouldn't you? Come on, come on, come on. So here's the thing. Burrow doesn't really seem to be assessing who's on the field and where they're lining up right now, which tells me that it's probably going to be a run. Because he just keeps looking at the... Oh, there you go. A little bit. Gabe, you're ahead of me. RPO for a TD. Does Burrow still run it in then? Oh, they actually decided to cover the wide receiver this time around. So this is the same formation, just different personnel than they've had the last like 4. Oh, there you go. Yep. Simple little handoff from Mixon. All right, I will catch you guys. So next stream, Sunday morning, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Eastern time, we will go through matchups. We'll talk more specifically about how each team matches up. That way I've got a full like extra few days to be able to watch some of this game film and map it and break it out. That's why I don't do a lot of the picks tonight, is because I need all the information I can before Sunday. And like I said, I'm going to keep bragging 12-4 for last week. So hopefully we keep that going at a 75% clip every week. Highly unlikely, but we're going to give it a try. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your night, and hopefully I will see you Sunday. Again, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter with any questions that you have. Check out the YouTube page, subscribe, give it a like. And if you're new here, drop a follow, hit the little bell for the notification whenever I go live. We're going live Tuesday nights at 7, Thursday nights at 7, and 10 a.m. Eastern on Sundays, all the way up until kickoff. So appreciate it. Everybody have a great night. Thank you guys so much. Can't wait to do it again.